Okay, apparently it doesn't want to do that. So never mind about the trailer, guys. We're just going to start. That's weird. Okay, well, as you can see, I'm alone today. So Uninspired won't be making it. I don't know why it's not playing the trailer. That was strange. But yeah, so how's everybody doing? I can see the chat. It's kind of awkward without having someone to bounce off of here. So I think I might just bring in a guest host today. How's everybody sound with that one? Everyone cool with that one? Okay, well, he's stepping up. He's been on the show before. He was on our last midnight run, and that is World War Joe. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? What
I don't know why
music do you got going on there or something?
That's stock music. It just kicked out the. I don't know what the hell happened. That was weird. I've never seen that happen before. It just decided it didn't want to play the intro. I don't know. Yeah, but
it happens.
Yeah, that's way super awkward there. I'll just start this. I'll definitely trim that down at a point.
Do the we're doing it live thing.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, I could try to do it one more time. You want to see it? Anybody want to see? Let's see what happens. That was so strange. Let's see. Nope.
Damn, I think the bop too.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, we tried. Sorry. No trailer today, everybody. But yeah, so how you doing today, buddy?
Can't complain. Sleepless nights now, but everything's worth it, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good one here today. This one was actually a personal choice of one of our guests, Despot of Antrim, who will be coming in shortly. I made sure to immerse myself in Asian culture this week. You know, I went to an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet, visited a massage parlor, and and I went and I grabbed this Arctic Ocean Mandarin orange soda, which tastes exactly like Fanta. So we're just gonna go with that. But yeah, so I say we start bringing in some guests. What do you say?
Hell yeah, go for it.
Okay, our first guest, you can catch on B-sides constantly. I was on there recently, had a lot of fun. I didn't realize how long they actually go, but that is Mr. Adam Gray making his return.
Ooh.
I have no idea. I hope that not all the clips do that, because I have no idea what happened with that clip.
I'm haunting your files. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen with all of them, because I put a lot of work into these clips. I'm gonna be pissed off if they don't go.
Do. That's kind of a bummer. Hi,
but yeah,
nice to see you again.
Yeah, I'm glad you stepped up for this one. We had a couple of dropouts and you were available. So yes, it is midnight. That is why this is the midnight run. I'm guessing that you are in the same time zone as France, which is why we named it this, because Uninspired normally at midnight. But yeah, Adam, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I haven't been immersing myself in Chinese culture exactly, but I'm amped. I love this movie. Been a big fan ever since it came out. So dusted off my DVD last night and had a great reason to watch it again.
That's good. Our next guest, I believe this is his first time on here. I believe he's debuting. I've crossed paths with him before, but first he was in, then he was out, then he was back in again, and so now he's here, and that's Jacob Ironside.
Well, hello, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. This is the first time. I've been looking forward.
Yeah, it's hard because we travel in the same circle, so it's hard to keep track of who's been where and what.
Yeah. So this movie, it's been a while.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get to our
brush it off and watch it again.
Yeah, but it's good to see you, man. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Rainy evening in Texas.
Well.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good to have you on. You've been on. Yeah, you know what? You've been on the short list for a very long time, and a couple of times I had meant to reach out to you, and it just gets crazy sometimes with the scheduling for shows. You just kind of lose people, and I'm glad I was able to finally get you on.
Yeah, I'm glad I could finally be on.
And for our last guest, like I said, this was a personal choice of his. He didn't even know he was making the choice. He sent me his list of favorite films, and I was like, you know what? Let's let's do this one. This sounds like something that would interest him in coming back, making his second appearance, I believe. Once again on Midnight Run 2 Hose. That is the Despot of Antrim. Wearing glasses now all of a sudden. He wasn't wearing glasses last time I saw him.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And I'm glad we're doing
No,
this.
thank you for coming on.
I was looking on YouTube to see if I could find some analysis of this movie, and there's pretty much nothing. The only thing I could find was one Patrick H. Williams video from like 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm not his biggest fan at the best of times, and this was like a 7-year-old video, so this is when he was not very good. I do think he's done some very good stuff, but this was clearly wasn't as good back then, and it's just sort of him sparking out and doing lots of plot summaries, and there's nothing really there. And there's nothing like there's no analysis of this movie, nothing really good, and there's so much there. There's so much depth to the movie. It has so much potential for analysis, and it's a shame that people aren't more aware of the depth of its brilliance.
No, it's definitely one of those ones I remember watching when I was younger. We talked about this briefly backstage that I didn't, obviously I was, let's see, it came out in 2000. I was born in 88. So you're talking, I probably saw it a few years after it came out. It's probably like 14 or 15 when it came out, when I watched it, I mean. And, I didn't appreciate it back then. I was just expecting your standard, and it has a lot of fights, but I was expecting your standard Kung Fu movie. And it's most of the narrative is not told through the fights or even many of the scenes. It's mostly told through like the depth of the dialogue, and if you're not paying close attention to what's being said, you lose a lot of it, especially from the ending. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, me
I
too.
do feel like this one maybe has fallen through the cracks a little bit over time.
I agree. Yeah, well, a lot of the actors would go on to do other movies that got. I mean, this one had a lot of acclaim, but I forget her name. The one who plays.
Michelle Yeoh.
No, Michelle Yeoh is obviously had a lot of the other one. What's the other girl's name?
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, her. She would go on. She was on like a tear for a while. From this to, and then she would go on. She did like House of the Flying Daggers. She did Memoirs of a Geisha, which Memoirs of a Geisha is really the one that she got a lot of acclaim for. So this one kind of
a lot of controversy too.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, because she's not Japanese.
Not Japanese.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
But that's a good transition for us to talk about. I already mentioned briefly my first time watching the movie, but let's go around the horn and see what everybody's first time was. We'll start with World War Joe. Do you remember the first time or oldest memory?
Just like you, I watched it when it came out. Didn't really appreciate it. When you told me about it, invited me on here, I watched this movie 2 times. I thought it was a brilliant movie. I'm very surprised that it's so short, though. 2 hours about? I feel like they could have really stretched this well past 3 hours if they wanted to.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, a lot of times these the Hong Kong cinema and stuff does run a little long, so that is a solid time frame for it to be in. How about you, Adam? What's your oldest memory or first memory with this movie?
I definitely caught it once or twice in the theater when it first came out. I have been a Chow Yun-Fat and John Woo fan for a while, so it was right there on my radar and loved it. Absolutely enthralled with it in the cinema. It's a beautiful film. It's interesting that Joe said that it feels short, because I remember at the time 2-hour movies weren't necessarily as common as they are right now, unless you're going to see Lord of the Rings or something like that. In that period, almost everything was under 2 hours that I can think of.
Well, a lot of movies tried to get in that 145 range. That's what they were trying to get to, because they wanted
epic. It's not that long, actually. It takes you lots of places. So I'm a huge fan of this film, and like I said earlier, I had a great reason to dust off my DVDs last night, and had a great time rewatching it.
Well, now we get to talk about it. But that brings us to Jacob. What's your oldest memory or first memory with this film?
I just remember, another subtitle movie, which as a kid, you're like, subtitles? Really? I gotta work to watch this? But but I did enjoy the fight scenes, but if you're not paying attention to subtitles, you're lost. But yeah, but the fight scenes were cool. I remember the fight scenes being fun, but watching it now, it's like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, so reading all the subtitles helps a lot. But yeah, watching movies with subtitles, you got to grow into. It's not You're not used to it, so.
In high school, I watched a
Yeah, but
lot
now,
of the Dragon Dynasty films, so I got used to it relatively early. Plus, I
yeah.
watched, anime and stuff when I was younger. But yeah, it definitely, there's a learning curve. You got to learn how to like read and watch at the same time. So it's
Right.
Yeah, if it's a bigger, I don't know, more important movie to me, a lot of times I will watch the dub first to keep my eyes glued on the scene and the actors, and then I'll watch it a second time with subtitles if I can to get the subtlety in the original performances once I know the plot and I've had a good look at all the art direction and everything.
Yeah, I actually for this one I watched both the sub and dub mostly because it's hard to take notes when you're watching sub. Some of the clips, which I hope play because whatever happened with that intro is still annoying me. Some of them I did choose to go with the dub because it's just hilarious the way that they speak in certain scenes. But we'll get to that when we cross the bridge. But that takes us to Despot, who I saved for the last because I have a feeling he's got a lot to say about the first time he saw this movie. So,
No, I don't remember the first time I saw it. I was
or the
very young.
oldest time.
It was probably about 12 or something, 12 or 13. I don't remember. I was a kid, but I watched it a lot as a teenager and always loved it. I loved that movie as long as I can remember having watched it. And every aspect of it, for me, it wasn't I did love the fight scenes, but I watched it mostly for just the story and the character drama, and also because Zhang Ziyi was just hot as fuck. I was just in love with her as a teenager. She was like my movie crush, as a kid. But just loved all aspects of the movie, and I was a little surprised when I went to rewatch it a couple of days ago that it is only 2 hours long because it has such an epic feeling about it.
Yeah, it definitely does. It feels like we were briefly mentioning it in the back that the pacing is kind of weird because it's very exposition heavy in the early on. Then it gets really fast for the middle, almost like the climax happens. Then they do that huge flashback. Then they almost restart the movie. It feels like it's basically like two movies sandwiched around a mini movie. It feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I would have to sit down and actually break it down, but I believe this is a 4-act structure.
Well, yeah, because you have your opening, all of that, which we're about to get into. I'll actually throw up the slides right now and rearrange us a little
Look
bit here.
At that. Beautiful title.
Yeah, and these were done by Joe. Thank you so much for helping me out with this
You're
one.
welcome.
And so obviously the opening, we always start with that, but I like the minimalist way that they do it in a lot of the Hong Kong movies. Just black background, title, and then just right into it. Usually they usually open up with a nice shot like this of a landscape of some kind.
Scenery is beautiful in this.
Oh yeah, the whole movie is beautiful.
I want to see where they filmed all this stuff. Like, is this practical effects, or is it actually like a town they found and did this?
This is if I'm seeing it right, this is a famous shooting village. I don't know which studios it would be, but this has been used in tons of films.
Really? Okay.
It's very familiar to me.
I can see why.
A shocking amount of this movie is shot indoors on stage. A lot of the exteriors are shot indoors. But,
so I will say, from a narrative perspective, we open up in this village, and we have a returning Master Li Mu Bai from he's a Wudang swordsman who is coming back, surprising pretty much everybody that's there, but especially surprising. There he is, Michelle Yeoh's cat. I'm just gonna call her Michelle Yeoh because I like.
Yeah, just call her Michelle Yeoh because if we. How are we going to do character names? Are we going to address them by the names of the characters in the movie or by the actor names? Or
that's actually a good question because I'll probably butcher the names, so we're probably best. Some of them like Jade Fox. I'll leave it up to your discretion.
If we're going to butcher them, we got to go with the original Chinese names then.
Well, I'm saying like I'll leave it
I
up to your
think
discretion.
we should all take a turn trying these names out.
Well, her name is what? It's Shu Lian.
No.
I've
Shu
I've
Lian.
actually had to bring up a cheat sheet. Her name is Yu Shu Lian. So Shu
Yeah.
Lian.
Yeah, it sounds like Julian in my to me when it's said in the movie. So like but the she's a private security company owner that she inherited from her father, who used to basically be partners with Li Mubai and hasn't seen him in a very long time. So she's exceptionally happy to see him.
They have a history.
They do have a history. She was once engaged to was his not that was his her master or partner? I don't remember.
His brother or best friend?
Best friend and partner.
Yeah,
That was
best
it.
friend
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
And both of our leads here at the peak of their game, they both look great. They're both bringing in or getting more recognition in the Western world than they ever had before.
Chow Yun-fat at this point was kind of making a name for himself in the West. It would be a few years before Michelle Yeoh really started to make an impact. I mean, she had been in a few martial arts movies with like Cynthia Rothrock and stuff, but now she's definitely getting more acknowledgement.
She was a Bond girl before this movie. She was the Bond girl in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yep.
That was the sort of the peak of her Western exposure prior to Crouching Tiger, but she was known in the West to some, and obviously Bond raised her profile a lot.
I'm kind of curious.
And she was peak, man. She was peak in Tomorrow Never Dies. Like that's just, her at her, most beautiful, most athletic. She has some amazing fight choreography in it. She looks incredible. It's awesome. If you want to see like peak Michelle Yeoh, check out Tomorrow Never Dies.
So we were actually talking about this. I was talking about this backstage. She's kind of in that. Asians just have this tendency to look like when they turn 15 to like 50, you can barely tell they've aged. And then she's kind of in that. She's just coming out of that phase in her life now. But here, I couldn't even tell you how old she is here. She could be anywhere between like 18 and 35. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but generally menopause hits real hard with Asian women, and they suddenly age their whole life in 10 years.
But yeah, so they're discussing basically he's had a what he's explaining. It almost sounds like he hit enlightenment, but he didn't. It's more of it's like a dark premonition, I guess you could say, because he says that he feels like emptiness, and there wasn't that warmth that he should have felt, and it's making him really question everything that he's been working toward. And he's actually come to essentially give up his sword, which is a legendary sword, Green Destiny, and essentially step down.
I think he realized through meditation that he's still holding on to some attachments, and we have the famous sword and Michelle Yeoh here in the same room while he's discussing his blockage to enlightenment.
I think it's amazing that the at this part of the movie, it's like 7 minutes into it, and we get so much just from a short, not even on the nose conversation between these two. We know pretty much everything we need to know, and we even know about a little bit of foreshadowing for the future and a little bit of relationship stuff between them. I think it's just a very well done first 7 minutes of this movie.
Yeah,
it's also
without much telling you what's going on. You just kind of so he's a swordsman at the end of his wanting to change his life and move on and
well, end of the rope is kind of
really
the theme here with a lot of this. Okay, sorry, that was a private message before. I just want to acknowledge to the chat that I do see you, but because I'm the only one with controls right now, I can't really highlight any of your chats today. I'm sorry. If super chats come through, I will, but I'm handling all of it by myself today, so I will be. I'll try to highlight when I can. But yeah, so I'm sorry. Where were we? That was a slight aside there.
Talking about their past.
Yeah, it's a nice, efficient setup. Not too much exposition. Pretty efficient.
No, it's definitely they get a lot out quickly. You learn a lot about the history of the characters and the background of the world, all in literally the first 2 scenes. So
there's other things as well. Social class is a very big theme in this, and how characters' socioeconomic background informs their relationship with one another and their behavior around one another. And when you look at this first scene, you'll notice that there's a great deal of deference toward Li Mubai and Michelle Yeoh. So it's indicated immediately that these people are of higher socioeconomic status. They're not peasants. They're not lower down. But we later find out that they're not aristocrats because they are themselves deferent to the aristocrats once they go into the court of Certé. And you get a lot of the sort of background from the characters comes from those interactions. It's not stated outright, but we get their socioeconomic status and their background just from how everyone behaves around one another. And that's very, very deliberate. The director, are you fucking kidding me? I can't remember his name.
Ang Lee?
Don't tell me.
Oh, sorry. I said it too quickly. I'm sorry.
This happens to me on stream. I blank with names on stream. It's like this bizarre idiosyncrasy I have. I just blank out names on stream. Anyway, so Ang Lee was very, very deliberate in communicating the socioeconomic status of everybody. And apparently one thing he really struggled with was the accents, because the actors are from all different parts of China. And Michelle Yeoh, she's not even speaking her native tongue here. She grew up speaking English and Malaysian. I think, I don't know what her ability in Mandarin Chinese is, but it's not native or fluent. And she had to learn her lines phonetically. I don't know how much of what she was saying she understood. Maybe Malaysian and Chinese are very similar. I have no idea.
Well, her parents are of Mandarin descent. So she is Chinese by blood, so she probably grew up around it, but it was more than likely.
She probably has some knowledge of it, but she did have to learn her lines phonetically. And then the Li Mubai actor, Chow Yun-fat, he is he speaks Cantonese. He's from Hong Kong, I think. So he had to I think Cantonese and Mandarin are quite similar, but he really had to work on his accent. To give you an idea of how hard it was, on his first day of filming, Chow Yun-fat had to do 28 takes for his first scene because Ang Lee wasn't satisfied with his accent.
So let me just see what the next slide is, because now that's moving on. So Cantonese is the one that is often kind of whimsical sounding. It's the one where they hold their syllables like at the end, whereas Mandarin is really punchy. That's the one that people always joke around. It sounds like you drop change because it's so many sounds so quickly. So I could see it's a lot easier to transition from Mandarin to Cantonese. I had a friend in college who spoke both, and he used to tell me that Mandarin, because of how like simplistic and like hyper formal it is, it's easier to transition to the more the other one, to the Cantonese, than back, because you're following such strict rules in Mandarin. So it's.
I would imagine he also had a more of a working class accent to begin with too, that he's contending with. They have to speak semi formally, which in a cop movie it doesn't quite matter as much. Yeah,
it's definitely they're similar in the same. I wish I knew more about them. Like I said, I had a friend who told me about them, but he would just in his home he spoke Cantonese. I know that, but he also spoke Mandarin, and it definitely.
Would it be similar to Spanish versus Italian?
I don't want to make any bold claims because I don't know it. I don't know well enough. I don't want to sit here and make claims about it, because then that's, people are like, oh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I really don't. I don't know how similar they actually are. I just know that one, you hold your syllables a lot longer. I would say it's just, that's why a lot of people say it's more whimsical. But in the story. So they travel to Peking, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm. Capital.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. They travel to Peking, basically to give the sword to the governor. There he is. And I don't. Oh yeah, while she's walking through the streets, you see all the. This is one of my favorite like moments
Is
in
there
the
something
movie.
to this?
It's just kind of showing you, the street
I love this,
performance.
man. I love this kind of world building because
Mhm.
it's something that so many directors get wrong. Just basic world building, little things like so. This is King Dynasty,
Mhm.
which I don't want to get the dates wrong because the internet being the internet. It's 1644 to 1912, so it's set sometime between that area. We don't see any firearms, or so we can assume that it's probably something like 17th or 18th century, not so much 19th century.
Yeah.
And it's just showing you the kind of things that you would expect to see in China around this time, such as children being exploited by their parents as street performers and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of basically they're walking through a marketplace, and anyone and everyone is trying to make money, no matter how they have to do it. Some are street performers, others are selling objects. Obviously,
Yeah, there's a nice little tip here that a young little girl can be very physically skilled
a
too.
contortionist.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it's not far to learning martial arts from that.
So guys,
So.
what do you think of this CGI? Because I was thinking about it doesn't hold up that well, particularly if you look at it's not quite the bottom right. It's like a little mini coliseum here. You see it? This little arena.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah.
It's
I
very
didn't. I
obvious.
actually didn't notice that until I just looking at it now. Yeah,
That's
but
Is that
probably the most.
CGI?
It looks CGI to me. Isn't this whole thing CGI? Yeah, I would say most.
It could be a matte painting. I'm not even sure, but
I thought
it
it'd be a
doesn't.
little, like,
quite
model.
convince
It's
me.
not real.
No, it's not.
The way that people move as well when you're watching the movie, this still looks fine, but when you watch the movie, it's the way that people move through it, and it looks really jarring. If you've seen anybody who's seen Captain America: Brave New World knows what I'm talking about.
yes, it's my second most successful video of all time.
Well
Love
done.
it. Yeah, thank you. I tell you the truth, this is one of those sequences that I'm often trying to pick out. I wasn't looking at the people. I'm often trying to pick out things in the background, because those houses almost look like they don't make sense. They look very modern behind the wall. Like if you look at them, they don't look like all the white roofs and stuff. They don't look like they have those what are they, clay shingles on them or anything. Up front, these ones in the front of the wall look a little bit more like what we would come to expect later on. But the rest of that just
classical Eastern roof. Well,
yeah.
It's important to remember that if you wanted to have, because I live in Korea and I've traveled all around Asia, and I've seen a lot of these little ancient villages. They have them as tourist attractions in different places. And the classical Western idea of an Asian roof with the upslant at the end and the hanging lanterns and the sort of the dragons painted at the bottom of the roof and carved dragons and things like that. That's expensive. So if you're a peasant, you can't afford that. Peasant houses, the roofs are generally just hay. It's just a hay roof. Or some equivalent. So
if you've seen
be accurate. They can't afford to have a decorative roof.
Yeah, in Cobra Kai, when they if anyone has watched Cobra Kai, you see when they travel to Korea for Master Kim, a lot of them are in basically really heavy duty what it's not grass, it's like brush is what they use.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they don't have any money. So what are you going to do?
Brush is the right. It might be hay. It might be twigs. It's just brush. Yeah. They just use brush for peasant houses. And bear in mind, like peasants back then were impoverished in a way that is difficult for modern Westerners to imagine.
So this is we get to see it pretty much up close here. This is Green Destiny going to the governor, right? That's who is here. Right. Yeah, and he's not particularly interested. He doesn't want it. Essentially, he's going to take it. He basically says that he's going to take it until Li Mubai decides that he's going to stop being an idiot and come back out of retirement. Basically, this is the equivalency of somebody giving up their boxing gloves and being like, I'm done, I'm not doing it, and then don't worry, I'll hold on to these until you decide otherwise.
It's a legendary mystical weapon that a normal person should not be holding, and I think he's aware of that.
Yeah.
So it's like getting Captain America's shield and then instantly giving it back episode 1.
Yeah.
I do love the sound it makes whenever they take it out of the scabbard, because it's very thin metal. I have a love-hate relationship.
There's a green glow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost got like
green
a patina
glow gives
on
off,
it.
and it's cool.
And but I have a love-hate relationship with this sword because it looks really nice when it's not in use, but when it's in use, it looks like a prop. It bends a lot, and I understand that that's part of what they're going for, but it's hard to take it seriously as being able to cut through these much thicker weapons.
I wonder if that was by design of it. Like they were making the sword, and they were like, okay, well, it's kind of thin. Let's just put that in the story of why it's thin.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
I always felt that the reason it was so flexible is because it needs to absorb so much shock without breaking, so they made it flexible on the material. And the craftsmanship is so excellent that that's why it's able to cut through a lot of stuff. So I always loved the sword for that reason.
Yeah, agreed.
If the sword was really stiff, that would have been harder to imagine, because I would have thought, well, it can't take damage over hundreds of years. It's going to break eventually.
They got like 3 scenes talking about the sword in this whole movie too.
It's it's got to be one of the finest made weapons in the world. So it's it's going to snap through your average grunt's weapon, no problem.
It does make the sound it makes is really cool. It almost and I like to think of it, whether or not you're talking about the craftsmanship, but there's definitely some mysticism around it, some sort of, like almost like it's a magical item. Like you might see in a Arthurian legend, but the sound it makes adds to that, because it's almost like and there is some parallels here with certain things you see in the Star Wars films, the good ones, where they talk about certain things, and it almost has its own sound, like the lightsaber has its own sound. It's very distinct, and you know what's going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But they essentially they transition to a different conversation, which is mostly about the fact that Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh's characters have been in love with each other since forever. It's the forbidden love aspect of this movie is very throughout, and multiple characters. And
kind of
this
nice.
is
the people around them. The people around them know, they acknowledge it, so it's not a secret. It's not a clandestine sort of thing that they're trying to pull off. They very deliberately avoided getting involved with each other, and everyone around them knows that they're in love.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing, and I think this is where you start to the running themes are, even though it's in a mystical Wuxia style, the themes are very relatable to your average person. Everyone is either been in or knows someone that is in a situation like this at some point in their life, where they have feelings for someone, and maybe both of them do, and they can't, reciprocate those feelings for each other for whatever reason. Here, it's, almost out of obligation, but also the being, kind of fed up with your, in a way, Lee Mubai is kind of like fed up with his job. It's a weird way of looking at it, but it's something that he's done for a long time and trained for a long time to do. And he's not sure if he wants it anymore. I mean, how many people who went to college, got a degree, and then found out right after they got out of college, oh man, this sucks. It's not. I mean, it's a universal thing a lot of people go through. It's done in a weird way here. Yeah.
Was that look at Adam? There's a responsibility and everything. It just weighs on you, and that's why he was talking about that. He sat there and he found enlightenment and realized that, hey, I should not be doing this anymore.
Yeah. But the best part about it is he does not lose the skill, though. That's kind of the that's a thing that he doesn't ever lose the abilities. It's not like one of those things where they wrote it in and you've stopped meditating, so you no longer can fight, kind of thing, which is good. So they take the sword to the it's his office, I guess. I think that's what it was. And they run into the girl that I can't pronounce her real name. But Jen. It's
Call her Jen.
Yeah, just call her Jen. Who states that she was here looking for a quiet area to study. Which is a little weird that she would choose basically a government office to do so.
They don't do work anyway.
Yeah. But she's what is it? She's what's her exact despot? Help me out here. She's her parents are, her father is
her father is some sort of government official, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's like I think they mention he's like an aristocrat or something.
It's an aristocratic family, and her father is some sort of government official. Yeah, some sort of bureaucrat.
Yeah, and she is basically betrothed to be married to a guy that I think we see once in the whole movie.
Do we see him? I don't. When do we see him?
I think then we see him
later on. The wedding parade.
Yeah, when they're like marching through the streets, the parade. I think he's the guy.
He's on horseback.
Yeah, I think he's on horseback. I might be misremembering.
Is he the guy on horse? Because I was looking at the guy on horse, thinking, he looks kind of like a pompous asshole.
Yeah.
Which is why she doesn't want to marry him.
Was that the husband?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's this sort of kind of fat guy on a horse who looks very proud of himself. Jesus, she dodged the bullet there.
Yeah. So the governor's hosting their wedding because he's a lesser aristocrat or whatever.
So they get into a conversation about the sword, and basically Jen shows great interest in it. It's a great shot right there. I want to do that again because that was a really cool transition.
Damn, that's so fast.
But yeah, Jen, she's a little vague about a lot of things throughout pretty much the whole movie. She's vague. At least the first half, she's vague. But Michelle Yeoh's character is incredibly not. What's the word I'm looking for? She's definitely suspicious of her right off the bat. And let's see. Okay, so I don't remember what's happening here. We're coming up on the first. Right up here. Oh, okay,
yeah. It's that night, and
it's the night. Yeah, now I remember. So she's essentially getting ready for bed, and this is who we will eventually find out is not a good person, but we'll get to that later.
And this actress, Chang Pei is a famous workhorse martial arts film veteran. She's been in tons of stuff since the 70s.
It's amazing.
She moved really well. Go ahead.
Her fight choreography in this is incredible for a woman of her age. I looked this up, and all the fight scenes they rarely use stunt doubles. Like when you look at the bamboo scene, it's them in a bamboo forest on what do you call the rope that they use to hold them up?
That's the wire works.
Yeah,
wire.
Just on a wire. I thought there was some specialist name for it, but it's just them on.
I'm sure there's a name for it, but it's wire work is all I call it.
Well, yeah, it's them on suspension wires in a bamboo forest, and all the choreography you see with Michelle Yeoh, Jade Fox, Zhang Ziyi, it's them, and it looks fucking incredible.
So one thing that they kind of point out is I'll just call her Jade Fox. I don't know. I was trying to be like do the whole
Jade
thing.
Fox. Just call her Jade Fox.
Yeah. Jade Fox is not particularly attractive comparatively to some of the other characters in the movie, and that's kind of part of that kind of plays part in the fact that she feels inferior to Jen throughout the entire thing. But they're talking, and we'll just jump right to Jen going to bed. Which I always love this because she blows out the one candle and the other two are just on. And it's just like, okay, it's still light behind your little screen here. Like, what do you...
Well, she's retired. She's done dressing. She's done at the desk, and
no servants to blow out the candles here.
Yeah. Well, that's like literally behind her bed. They'd have to crawl over her to do it. It's like,
I would volunteer.
but it is night, and this guy who I never remember, I just know him as the guy who gets fucked up a lot in this movie. He from certain scenes he looks like Chow Yun-fat if they're far enough away, and it throws you off a little bit. But he gets fucked up pretty much. In fact, so much so that definitely not Jen breaks into the office to steal the sword. And here we go. And I actually have a clip of this. I hope this works, because I'm gonna be really pissed if all these clips don't work after the amount of shit that I did. Let's see. This one's a quick one with sound.
All right, who goes in?
She makes a mockery of him. She really.
I love how he hits himself in the face.
Yeah, he hits himself twice in the face. Once she has his weapon on the ground there and lets it go, and he hits himself twice in the face.
It
Maybe
speaks
he
to your
needs to find a new
character.
line of work.
It speaks to your characterization as well. She could quite easily simply extricate herself from that room with the sword, but she chooses to hang around to toy with this guy, kind of like a cat toying with a mouse. And
Yeah.
it's a lovely little bit of character work, and it's also why because I was thinking about this. Why are the fight scenes in this so compelling? Whereas a lot of modern fight scenes, it's just shite, it's just slop on screen, and there's fights and it's happening and you don't care. I was like, what makes you so invested in the fights here? And it's because there's so much going on around them in terms of plot, narrative, character work, character dynamics. They're all coming together in these fights.
all
just
of
there
the
for-
fights. Yeah.
even it hits you in a conscious and a subconscious level, just the way she toys with this guy for her own amusement. That's just it's a lovely bit of character work.
What we don't see very often anymore, at least in Western media, is that characterization through action, the style of fighting. There's some of it in the Star Wars prequels, the Duel of the Fates. You see some of that work, but not to this level, where every move shows an indication of personality from the fighter. It's magnificent.
I actually do have she obviously Jen goes to escape. We don't know it's Jen yet, but she goes to escape and she's doing pretty well. She's using the same techniques that everyone else, for the most part, the main characters at least, have the ability to do, and escaping on the rooftops. I actually do have this one. Does not have sounds. Just remember to unmute yourselves after I start it. But yeah, it's this one's pretty long, but Michelle Yeoh basically meets her up on the rooftops, and they get into a huge chase sequence. You have to unmute yourself, guys.
It's
I did.
when the first couple of times I saw this, I know that I had the thought, and then people around me I talked about the movie with, they're like, well, it kind of looks like they're on wires. And I gradually realized that the point is not realism. The point is to put you into that fantasy frame of mind. So it's not about every footstep being perfectly accurate. They are sort of floating through this fantastical world. And I really like it now.
Hold on. It seems absurd to me that people would criticize this on the basis that it's not realistic. Like, oh, well, they couldn't really do that. It's like, well, of course not. It's a fantasy. I don't know what is it pronounced. Wuxia.
Wuxia. I call it Wuxia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I always call it Wuxia.
Well, I think
it's probably Wuxia or something like that. But yeah, I just say Wuxia.
But I mean, it's not. They're going for verisimilitude certainly, but not realism. That's a common mistake that I'm just going to say it, idiots make when they're looking at movies and film criticism. They can't distinguish between verisimilitude and realism, which is why every single time I criticize forced diversity on screen, I get called a racist, because their attitude is, well, they can have wizards, but you can't have a black guy in the Middle Ages, and they cannot understand that I'm distinguishing between realism and verisimilitude, believability, and real. But it's
Yeah.
like trying to explain math to a duck. It's pointless trying to talk to these morons.
People tend to get pretty pedantic, about media. There's layers of criticism, and
Yeah,
the average
one
teenager
guy-
on a Saturday afternoon is a different level.
Yeah, one guy criticized this on the basis that it's just wire fu, man. Crouching Tiger's not that good. Because I had a video where I highlighted, I said, look, the problem isn't women in fight scenes. Women can do amazing fight scenes. And I used Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon as an example of it. And then I said, but it's just that in Disney movies, they don't hold the women to any sort of standard and they look like shit. And some guy said, Crouching Tiger's not that good. It's just wire fu. It's like, yeah, it's wire fu. But who cares? It looks amazing. Putting a label
They're all
on
supposed
it.
to be. They're all supposed to have like powers, though. That's the thing. Is they're all supposed to essentially be able to do things that normal humans can't.
Well, I'm more offended that
I'm
more offended that somebody would
ahead,
dismiss wire fu because that's hard work, dude. That is really hard work being up there all day.
Just putting a label on something does not negate its quality.
No, me watching this, they're on wires, but it didn't take me out of the movie or anything. It looks good. They did a good job with it. I didn't see any wires in it. I mean,
oh no, you're not going to see the
go
wires. They're
close
going to
enough,
make sure that you can't see them.
Yeah, but I thought it looked great.
I mean, does it look a little silly at points? Yes, it can, because they're like literally running off of air and water and stuff. Yeah, so it can look silly, but you also have to put yourself in the mindset. This is a very regional style of film, I mean, it started as theater technically, and if you can't put yourself in the mindset, then don't even watch it. You're not getting the point of what you're watching.
I mean,
obviously,
if you put it into that mind. If you put it into that mindset that it's a theater, I mean, you're not going to go to a theater and complain, they were on wires. I saw the wire.
Yeah, well, seriously, man.
This is basically what it is, but in a film.
It's kind of weird. There's a Netflix, I think, prequel version of this movie. And I was watching the trailer today, and you could clearly see the CGI with everything about them jumping. And it just looks so much worse than just what we have going on here with the wires and the practical effects. I just think it's way too heavy on CGI, and we have to get back to things like this almost.
Despot, you're about to say.
I forget. Probably nothing particular.
You were about to say if you can't put yourself in that mindset.
Oh, well, basically, I'm saying if you can't, I often think that a lot of modern viewers they have what I call Disney brain. Mm-hmm. They have been trained by Marvel movies and by Disney movies to just expect a certain kind of slop and CGI shitfest, and when they don't see that, when they see the camera actually fucking hold still for 10 seconds instead of going cut with it in front of a green screen, they're not used to seeing it. Their brain just can't fucking comprehend it, and they reject it. It's almost like a body rejecting a foreign virus or something. They blank it out immediately, like, oh, I don't like that. That's not a Marvel. That's not a Star Wars. I don't like that.
I would actually equate it more to if you get like a organ donor transplant and your body rejects it. It's like, this is actually good. Like, it's like a virus you actually want to get rid of.
It's not a Marvel. It's not a Star Wars, and they just can't comprehend it.
I think you're right. I'm old enough to know that phenomenon as MTV brain. So
MTV brain, right?
Yeah.
One thing, I'll go back to this one real quick. So we don't really see who it is, but somebody does fire this arrow at her and kind of disappears off of the. It was in the clip, but that clip is so long, I'm not going to replay it. And off to the basically off of one of the rooftops. We'll come into play later though. But they are now aware that the sword is missing. That's the only one we got, and they're not really sure what to do or why, who took it. I mean, there's some suspicions, but and Michelle Yeoh goes to visit
that guy. The guy that confronted her, he didn't. I mean, he might not have been able to stop her, but he followed her where she was heading.
So yeah, he tried to keep up with her as best he could, but he doesn't have the abilities to follow her.
Right.
It's funny because Oh, because he's not a monk. He's just like
Oh.
he's just basically like city security firm.
He's a
Like
strong
he's not.
Right.
Yeah, like they're all trained in a much different style, whereas he's probably. I mean, they make it a joke. Oops, someone's beeping. They make it a joke throughout the entire movie that he gets his ass kicked, but they never show him against anybody who doesn't have mystical powers. He
Right.
probably is a
Right.
badass, but it's played off as he's the butt monkey of most of the jokes.
Well, he's a beat cop. You know, he takes the
Yeah.
beatings every time and keeps walking. You know, he's all right.
Mhm.
But Michelle Yeoh goes to visit Jen, who tries to impress her with her, I don't know, her domestic shit. I don't really. She's like, oh, I could write your name. Like,
Well, and she slips up because Michelle Yeoh can see right through her skills that
Mhm.
something's going on with her muscle control and her precision with her calligraphy.
She knew in the beginning that
for,
something's
for
up with
people
her.
who don't know, in Asian culture, I mean, look at the samurai. They didn't just study swordplay; they studied art or calligraphy. And
well, you were
like
you were a town.
they
When
they
you're
saw
talking
it
about
as
the
something
samurai.
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, they saw it as something connected. So
Yeah, well, and
it's
with
similar
the samurai,
here.
which is obviously different than China, but you were a town. Everybody had to have a job. You weren't just a samurai, and that's all you did. You also had to do something that helped
Right.
your village as well. So if it was just a bunch of guys who were in the essentially soldiers with no other job, that the city would just fall apart, or the town, village, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it was like that scene in The Last Samurai where Tom Cruise is looking around as just the guy pouring soup, and just the way he puts the ladle down so perfectly every time. So yeah, there's such a an art amount about everything that they do at this time.
And then what do we got next? Oh, so these three, the girl on the left is the daughter of the guy on the right. I don't know their names. I'm not even going to try. And our friend here in the center have all basically everyone believes that Jade Fox is the one behind the sword's disappearance, which I mean theoretically she kind of is, but not at the same time. But and they get we don't have either a clip or a slide of it, but someone that we don't see shoots a arrow at them, like just similar to the one that Michelle Yeoh had, and essentially says, come meet me at this location at midnight. And I actually have a clip with sound for that because they do end up going there. So I'll play this one. Hold on.
Well, one thing.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. You can. I gotta find it anyway.
We do kind of figure out that he's like an undercover police officer.
Yeah.
And it's not just that he's a police officer after her. The Jade Fox killed his wife. So
Yeah.
it's him and his daughter.
That's
going
actually the
after her.
first line I kept. This is from the dubbed version, which I just found hilarious.
Okay.
They explain pretty much right off the bat that, but yeah, you are correct. The Jade Fox did kill the wife / mother. But here, let's
If you surrender to us now, you will suffer less in the end.
I shall avenge Mother!
I will help you join her, you little slut.
Poor guy.
Hey, no! This thing!
I will.
Jump! Their hands!
Do you know,
So good.
I've never been
Wrong
able
one.
to watch dubs. They're
Yeah.
so corny, but just listening to that, you can hear that the dubs have been recorded in a sound booth, and
Yeah.
you've got this hideous contrast between the sounds of the outdoors and these really flat, dead sounding dubs that have been done in a cushioned sound booth. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of movies contain dubbing. Actors will come back to dub their lines because they're speaking them outdoors and things, and there's a lot of interference. But for that scene, I think it's pretty obvious that they just mic'd them up, and you can hear them shouting, and you can hear the echo across the courtyard.
Mhm.
But when they dub it, it's flat as hell. It's funny. It's really funny.
I found this one to be especially funny because one thing having watched both of them back to back, the words. So a lot of times with dubs, they'll do regionalization problems. They'll remove specific references to things that they think people won't know. They don't really do that with this one, more because it's a period piece. They don't really have to do that. It's pretty spot on in terms, like they might change the word, like in the actual script with the subs, it says whore. In this one, she says slut. I actually find it funnier in the dub. That's why I kept the dub one for that one, because it just seems so like. First of all, we don't know yet, but later on, she's they do show that she's like, oh, you know what, my dad died. Why don't you come into here and we'll get to the dad dying soon. We're like, why don't you come in here and like spend time with me, like. But I do actually have the rest of the fight with no sound, so we could play that while we talk. So just remember to unmute yourselves, guys. This is but right after that, before I do say that, or right after that, we get Li Mubai does show up to kind of turn the tide of the fight. So yeah, he fights off Jade Fox, and this is a pretty long clip. I always wondered what she was grabbing there. By the way, she like gets stabbed, but not really, and like checks her right tit for some reason. I can't really figure out what she's really doing.
Quick, but he popped her with the dull side or something.
Oh, but yeah, and then right here is when Jen shows up, and she has Green Destiny. So it becomes a dual fight now.
Notice as well that if a viewer hadn't figured out by now that this is Jen, and it's pretty obvious that it is Jen.
I slowed it down on purpose there.
It's insanely obvious that it's Jen.
Yeah.
But if a viewer hasn't made that connection by now, it's revealed like the mask is just for characterization. Like the director wants the audience to know this is Jen, wants 100% of the audience to know this is Jen by now, even though we basically already know it. It's been inferred many times. But I love that about this movie, that they don't go for a cheesy reveal. You know, it's not a whodunit. It's not a sort of mask off moment. It's not Rian fucking Johnson trying to subvert the audience's expectations. We know who it is, and the audience, and instead they go for the much more dramatically satisfying. And he does a much more dramatically satisfying thing whereby
this isn't a mystery movie.
Yeah, it's all subtext. You've got Michelle Yeoh having these scenes with Jen where it's all subtext. She's asking her questions, and what she really means is, you know, where did you learn this? How did you learn this? Why are you doing this? And what she's doing is Michelle Yeoh is trying to get Jen to open up to her and to admit that she has done this. But it's all subtext. She's trying to confirm it for herself and get Jen's reasoning without any accusations. It's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of the exploring identity or definition of identities in this with the characters is based on, you know, who is your master. You know, there's a lot of weight put on the school that you went to, or who trained you, and that sort of thing, which I think is really interesting.
That is a narrative. What Despo was just talking about, that I love that narrative device when it's used properly. When there's like that mental chess game of you trying to get, like, obviously you're not showing your strategy. One of the people in that conversation knows they are, and the other person is trying to get to the person to reveal that they are. So you're moving your pieces in a way to not give away either of those things. And it is a fun little, it's a pretty common narrative device, but when done properly, it's just such good characterization. I'm trying to think of other examples when that happened.
It's very common in Bond.
Yeah, Bond does it a lot. They did a little bit of it in The Matrix, where they tried to do that kind of stuff. I should have like sat down and really thought about this, but yeah, I'm sure everyone can come up with one where they've seen something like that, where someone knows a detail and they're trying to like coax it out of a person.
I like the fact that the masters can just with a couple of minutes of fighting tell where they trained, what techniques they know. They're so knowledgeable, and they fought so many people that they're like, "How did you learn this Wudon move or
Yeah.
whatever?"
The Wudang. Yeah, that's actually not, so it's a little bit, obviously my chosen fighting style is jiu-jitsu. I've boxed, I've done kickboxing, but there sometimes you can tell where a person trains or who they trained with. If they're, you might not know the exact black belt, but you can always tell, like, oh, this guy comes from a very wrestling oriented gym, or like West Coast gyms, like California gyms usually have like a very specific style. If you go, one of the more famous ones that has 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, it's all based on flexibility of your knees and stuff. So like sometimes you can tell where a person trained, or at least what system they learned. So that's super. I like that they do that in this, that you can identify the stuff because you've lived it.
Yeah. Agreed.
But I just want to say this guy's really fucking dead.
I love that picture.
Yeah, the part where he gets it flung at him and he's got like reaching for it before he realizes he's dead.
He's still grabbing his weapon
That was,
too. With the other
that was
hand.
a good touch.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of these weapons are. They're horribly impractical, though.
But they're cool.
They look good.
They're a Klingon weapon.
Yeah, they look like Klingon swords. Yeah, like two of them kind of like welded together almost. But yeah, these are the fact that she flings it back and it hits it. I wish that I had the still frame of that, because the way he like throws his head back and stares directly at the camera is almost unnerving.
This is a double scythe. It seems to have been welded together.
Yeah. Horribly
Right.
impractical.
It's a horrendous. I mean, obviously it's for theater. It's theatrical. It's for show, but it's not a practical weapon. There are too many little parts that would get caught on other weapons, and it would be, you cut yourself on it, and it's useless. But
Yeah,
it looked
a lot. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. We lose Desmond?
No, I'm done.
Oh, sorry. There's a lot of weapons that have become part of popular culture, but were really designed for theater. For the most part, nunchucks are like that. They're not really like, there's nothing you can do with a nunchuck that you can't do with a club. That's just a superior style. But because Bruce Lee made them look really cool, now everyone loves nunchucks. And this is one of those things here where it's like, this was definitely somebody just made this up. They probably saw some sort of illustration from some like an old ass.
Nunchucks are cool until you ding yourself in the groin. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why I say they're very impractical.
I always thought the problem with nunchucks is that in order to do, it's a bit like karate as a martial art. The problem, it's not that karate isn't a great martial art, but the problem is the vast majority of people who ever take it up are never going to be good enough to be able to do anything particularly practical with it, because it's so difficult, and it's so difficult to throw a really athletic kick. And nunchucks, it's the same. Like, anybody can go to a boxing gym and throw some decent combinations after 6 months. You could spend 6 months in a karate gym or nunchucks and be not much better off than when you arrived. Like,
I agree.
To wield.
Well, there's also with karate specifically, it depends on. So if you're going to your standard McDojo at a strip mall, like if you go to like a legit Kyokushin karate place, which is really just Japanese kickboxing, that's all it is. With a slight rule difference, you'll get better. It really depends on the individual and the people and where you decide to go too. But nunchucks are, I always say, if you're going to use nunchucks, just use a bat. It has the same, it will do the same type of damage, but more in a more practical way.
And you're not endangering yourself as much with a bat either.
That's true too. So basically they go back and now everyone's aware that Jade Fox is around. And now Li Mubai does know that Jen is the one. And they're going to try to coax out Jade Fox, essentially. Let's see, when do I have my next clip? I think it's coming up soon. 55. But if I recall, let me see. Jade was not really particularly happy with the way things went down with Jen, which is setting up for later, because Jade definitely has an inferiority complex to Jen, which, we'll see. But
it develops through the show.
It develops more as it goes along. But it really, honestly, let me go back to that slider. It kind of starts here. This is really the origin within the film, at least. Obviously, it has an origin prior to the film, but the first time we kind of get it is here. It's a relatively quick scene because Jen doesn't really want to deal with her. She's just like, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Like a typical teenager. She's like, I'm going to my room, Mom. I'm not dealing with you. But this kind of sets the stage. This particular scene sets the stage for the final conflict for the most part. Anybody has an opinion on that?
I agree.
No, it's perfect.
I did a good job, apparently.
No, that was very good.
So we're about to get one more someone sneaking into someplace that's flip the whole narrative here.
So we meet Dark Cloud, who I guess we already saw him. He was on the rooftop. He was the one who fired the little dart at I keep going to say her actual name, but it's really just Michelle Yeoh. It's like, I keep going to say the character's name, but I keep forgetting it as I go along. But yeah, Michelle Yeoh. But now we get him formally introduced. Dark Cloud, or I think his actual name is Low.
Dark Cloud,
yeah, Low Dark Cloud. It's hanging low.
I'm
Who sneaks in?
I'm so embarrassed. My parents just named me Joe when they couldn't name me Dark Cloud.
Joe Dark Cloud. There you go. He sneaks in. They obviously have a history. He couldn't wait to see her anymore. He mentions that. Dark Cloud Giga Chad. He couldn't really get in because there's everything that's been going on. There's been a lot of I think specifically he says the traffic or whatever on the rooftops, but basically there's patrols. He can't get through.
I thought he was joking about how many people are in the middle of the night running around on the rooftops, but
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's the patrols plus he happens to be seeing people do all this Wuxia stuff.
I'm sorry, just the way you said there's traffic was so funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't get there. The traffic was a bitch.
Yeah. But their history goes back to basically they don't say like a time frame, but significantly earlier than this, when Jen was traveling through the desert basically on business, because of business of of her father, who and they were in a caravan that got attacked by Dark Cloud's gang.
Yeah,
and
they're pirates.
Yeah, let me see.
They're desert bandits.
Yeah,
desert bandits.
Cooler.
Yeah.
It's a really weird scene too, because they essentially attack the caravan, and he specifically goes out of his way to say, like, do not do anything to the women, which is the opposite of what desert bandits tend to do.
He's a virtuous pirate.
Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, if you're a desert bandit and you haven't had sex in 9 months, and the leader of your troop turns around and says, don't touch the women, you're going to be pretty pissed off at him. You know what I mean? And you're not going to be the only one. So he's not going to make himself a popular leader by saying, hey, those beautiful women that you're lusting after? Yeah, don't touch them. That's absurd.
Why did I sign up for this?
But I think it works quite well within the sort of romanticized context of this scene and of the movie in general.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't sign up to just pillage. What is going on here? But yeah, there's basically they just raid the caravan. And one thing that he specifically steals from Jen is her, I don't have a picture of it, but it's her ivory comb. Her ivory comb for her hair. Which, eventually she chases after him. and ends up in this situation. But I think I actually have a clip before this, so let me just play it. I think this one doesn't have sound, so we can have.
There it is.
Yeah, there's the
Come and get it. Basically, it's the game.
But yeah, I love this because he leads her to, he's like, your horse needs water. There's a creek up here, or at least there used to be.
I love the skeleton. It's such a nice touch.
Yep. And to be fair, she kind of does kick the crap out of him a couple of times.
But it's not like an overpowering thing. It's clearly a technique thing. So I think it definitely works better.
Mm-hmm.
It does work better. Like if this was kind of Marvel choreography, like girl boss choreography, it would just be horrible to watch. And it would also diminish his character because he's supposed to be this fearsome war leader. So if he got girl bossed, it would just be cheesy and cringe. But she is able to knock him out, and then she passes out from exhaustion. I think that works much better because she is a tiny woman,
Yeah. And also, I mean, they're in the desert. Like, she's gonna be dehydrated.
And bear in mind as well, she's not been trained to take out people in unarmed combat necessarily. She uses weapons. Unarmed combat is it going to be a distant second choice for her? It's not the ideal.
It's foreplay.
Yeah, I do like. I unfortunately, that was the hardest scene to cut down. That one had to be exported like 14 times before I finally got it to pass copyright. I love that when he does. It's basically a fireman's carry, or some people, pro wrestling fans would call it the FU, or John. She gets John Cena'd right out of the sand, and he's another thing I love is when she goes to chop him in the crotch, and he there's a clear he goes into desperation mode at that exact moment. Like he reaches down, and you could see that changes the narrative of the fight a little bit.
And obviously, it's foreshadowing of sex as well. They're
yes,
that's pretty obvious.
Oh,
all dirty foreplay.
Speaking of which,
well,
that one thing here. So back one more. He brings her back to the cave, and she panics, and he's like, "Hey, if I wanted to, I would have already." Which it's pretty obvious what he's talking about, but it doesn't stay like that. She's clearly into that shit, and it slowly becomes a budding love relationship between the two of them.
Do you know what the thing is though? She can never. It makes sense that she doesn't want to marry this guy Go or Gao or whatever his name is, because she's alpha widowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's experienced the ultimate sexual fantasy for a woman. She's been captured by this absolute alpha chad, six-packed bandit. He's the stuff of romance novels that women read, and she can't go back to some fat bureaucrat after that.
Yeah. I do love that he has perfect skin and teeth and stuff, despite the fact he lives out in the desert.
It's just such a shameless romantic ideal. I love it.
Yeah. It's yes,
right.
He can't even bathe because the creek has dried up. So but right here he tells her the story of basically I think it was a boy, right? A boy who jumped off the mountain for to make a wish.
There's a legend. If you jump from the top of this particular mountain, your wish will come true.
Mm-hmm. And once again, that sets up for the future. This we talked about this backstage a little bit. This was a kind of a mini movie inside the movie. It's like the two narratives sandwiched around this. Which gives a lot of context to the character's motivations, at least the ones that the two, Jen's motivation specifically. And it's go ahead.
I was going to say, I struggled with it a little bit when I was younger, but I fully appreciate it now. We'll just take you out to the desert and give you, the backstory of this relationship in a separate little mini movie. I think it's really good.
That's what I'm saying. This movie's really short, especially with all these things in it. This could have been a movie right here.
It's not like movies today that do a cutback that you could leave it completely out and it wouldn't mess with the rest of the movie. This adds to it, adds more plot to it.
So yeah,
it works.
Makes her more real.
Had they really wanted to, if you wanted to eliminate these sequences, this scene that's right here, you know, they could have just had it as a conversation and make it go quicker, because I think that scene is probably about 20-25 minutes long, because the whole desert sequence, if they really wanted to, they could have had it in a like a quick 5-minute conversation here. But it does add, first of all, it not only does it add the depth of the character, it helps create the world too. It's better world building, because now you know that there's these roving bands of desert pirates. So it definitely helps in that sense. Cool.
Yes. Well,
I thought this whole sequence, this whole 20 minutes here, a lot of the, you know, wide angle shots of the desert and the grasslands and stuff were really, really beautiful.
Oh, it's perfectly done too.
Yeah.
It definitely this is where the cinematographers were really allowed to shine. I mean, this and the in my opinion, the bamboo forest fight are the two areas where they, first of all, the lighting is much better in these sequences. A lot of the sequences take place at night or inside of buildings. So the blocking of the scenes, the lighting is not, these ones are outside landscape scenes. And that allows them to really have fun with the distance and all that stuff. And, you know, especially like playing with the sunrise sunsets. But we're back in one more. Back in the we're no longer in the before times, the long ago. We're now in the modern times, and it's upcoming on Jen's wedding. And she basically tells Dark Cloud, you know, I don't want to be with you. You know, even though she does, it's clear that she does, but she doesn't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah, but we know now that she is not cut out for this life.
No, she doesn't want to upset the apple cart. Like I said, she wants to, you know, it will ruin a lot more things than she's willing to screw up. She has a lot riding on it, basically, this marriage for her family.
For her family.
But but Dark Cloud's not going to accept that shit.
No.
He's so he's going to take on the entire town by himself.
What a Chad.
Yeah, fucking Giga Chad here.
Flipping tables, screaming.
Yeah, he's basically just out here just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to kill all you motherfuckers, because that is some good vagina right there. That's what I want. And I didn't take it by force. I specifically said don't take it by force.
I earned it.
I earned that vagina. But they you know, he essentially gets stopped by everybody for the most part, because it's a stupid plan. And Li Mubai and Michelle Yeoh, it's Shu Lien. Yeah, Shu Lien.
We know
Michelle Yeoh basically come up with a plan and send him away temporarily, and their plan is to get him and Jen together. They're playing matchmaker.
Specifically, they're sending him to Wudon Mountain.
Wudon.
He buys a base dojo temple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And let me just put that back up. That was a little longer than
the wedding actually happened. He interrupted it, but what happened?
No, he interrupted the wedding, and then
but afterwards did they go, oh, I guess we'll just back to where we began?
They yanked him out of there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they continue though?
Yeah, you would think that they would be like, hey, we paid for all this shit. Like, the caterer's here already. Like, we're just gonna
non-refundable.
But no, it does. I don't think it goes through. Basically, I don't think that was the actual wedding. I think that was them kind of like announcing that he had arrived, and the pre-ceremony, so to say.
Could be. They have very wedding ceremonies.
we lost Despot. No, I think he had to go reset his internet. He said it was giving him problems earlier. But when he comes back, he knows this movie well enough. But yeah, so they come up with that plan, and now the sword is. Oh, sorry, not the sword. Jen and the sword are out. Oh, that's what it is. She ran. That's what it was. She ran away, and now she's out, kind of just
and
being a
restole the
person.
sword.
She restole the sword, and she's out in what kind of looks like one of those little
encampment things.
Yeah, it kind of looks like when you're driving down a highway in a relatively deserted area and you come across like a food truck. Like, that's kind of what it's like. Yeah, like but it's no, that's not. Yeah, no, the tavern is in a little bit. This is this is just a little encampment with like wood tables.
It's a rest stop. Yeah.
It's a rest stop. Yeah, it just kind of looks like a random rest stop on the side of the highway with some tables and some food. And she encounters those two. There's not one. These two guys. She cuts their weapons in half, no problem. This is where the narrative starts to pick up a lot in the second half. It gets a lot quicker because they go from place to place a lot more. And if I recall correctly, this is the first conversation. Yeah, here we go. This is a great way of putting it from Crowbar. That she's cosplaying as an adventurer. Yep. Yeah, she at some point they even think that she's a guy.
Yeah,
so she really like
wearing a man's hairstyle.
Yeah, yeah. And let me just see where we're at, just because I know I have a clip coming up. This is when the conversations between LARPing. There's another one. The conversations between Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat start to pivot more toward. They're getting closer to admitting their feelings for each other. They don't quite yet, but they're basically questioning why they haven't at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're at the was it Jacob who brought it up? Now we're at the end.
Yeah, there's gonna be a bar fight.
Yeah, so the two guys that she messed up at the random pit stop essentially catch up to her. I got a private message here. Is he back? Oh,
yeah, this is funny.
Sorry,
she makes fun of their
sorry.
long names.
You were buried at the bottom. I didn't see it. Did you have anything to say about? Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
I love that how she makes fun of their names, their names being too long.
Mm-hmm. And one of them has the last name Gao, which is her fiance's name. She's like, Gao, I hate that name.
Des, before we move on, did you have anything about the post-wedding sequence that you wanted to mention? Can you hear me?
He might be muted.
The sequence in the desert? Are you referring to?
No. So we talked about the desert stuff. It's this whole sequence where Dark Cloud has quite possibly the worst plan in the history of trying to stop a wedding.
It's decent characterization because I think it explains why Jen ultimately rejects Dark Cloud and why, because Dark Cloud is a great summer fling. He's the kind of guy that a girl sort of dreams about having a summer fling with, but he's not marriage material. And not just because of his socioeconomic status, but because of his behavior. He's too possessive. So when after this, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, yeah, of course.
After this, he goes to, I don't know if this is Wudang Mountain. Next slide, please, where he's talking to Li Mubai.
Oh, yeah, that's this one. Yeah.
In this scene, basically, Li Mubai asks him to explain himself. Why have you crashed this girl's wedding? And he says his only explanation is she's mine. And he's screaming the whole time when he's riding around the wedding caravan, "You're mine, you're mine, you're mine." And it's almost childish. It's almost this childish state of possession. And it shows that he's emotionally immature. And while Jen has probably matured somewhat since the desert, he hasn't. He's still in that sort of immature state of mind. And I think in a sense, the desert is symbolic of and almost a state of romantic adolescence before you come into full adulthood and realize that there's more to marriage to just than just very shallow romantic feelings of I want to fuck this person right now and go live in a desert with them, surrounded by romance.
There's a joke that
So-
there's a comedian named Mary Mack, and I've since learned, since I was on EFAP, always say where the joke came from, as if you know it is, because they got mad at me for not saying who the joke came from. And she has a joke
So
about
basically-
like, oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry, interrupted.
No, I was gonna say, and her whole thing is that like when you want to settle down when you're too tired to keep going on. And it's just like, how do you know it's the one? Well, how tired are you? Can you keep going on? It's like, and then she points out that the person that her husband, she's like, yeah, he didn't fall into any of the categories I put on my list. He doesn't play the piano or drive a ship. And it's like, it's like these, like you're saying, it's these romanticized ideas that you kind of fall off with. It's obviously done. It's a joke, but it definitely things that you think you want when you're younger are not what you want, maybe even a year or two later.
Hmm.
Yeah. But go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's basically Yamcha from Dragon Ball.
Yes, that's actually a
Yes.
great comparison. And that means that I mean that would assume that Vegeta was the guy who she was supposed to marry. That's probably not proper. But
never really get much of that guy.
Well, yeah, we don't really see much
He's
of
only
him.
in it
That's
for that
pretty
one
much it.
scene, and that's it.
And then this was we briefly touched on this, Des, but this is kind of like the slow breaking down of the barriers between the two of them, the emotional barrier that they've been having. I don't know if you had anything for this scene.
No, it's an extra added dramatic arc in the movie. The slowly coming together of Li Mu Bai and Michelle Yeoh until they eventually admit their feelings for one another in that very nice scene where he grabs her hand and puts it on his face. That's really nice. And then, of course, it makes the ending even more tragic. So it's a really nice setup for the ending.
And then now, and I mentioned that she ran into the two bandits out at what I call the truck stop, because it was random tables on the side of a road somewhere. And she ends up in the inn here where they kind of corner her. And I think I have a clip here. But yeah, she's they're essentially accosting her in with all their really awesome names like the Iron Arm and I should have wrote them all down.
Flying Eagle Ren and Iron Arm Joe, and I love that shit because the names are deliberately corny as hell. They're like names that a 14-year-old who's seen his first kung fu movie would give himself when he's doing pretend with his brother.
Yep.
It's just it's so corny and hilarious, and they know like this isn't the movie being corny. Ang Lee knows these names are ridiculous because these people who fancy themselves adventurers are figures of ridicule. They're the real LARPers here, whereas Jen is the real deal.
Yeah. So I couldn't. This was also a really incredibly hard clip to cut down. This one has sound. Seems like the ones with sound are the hardest ones to do. But I wasn't able to get it, so I'll just mention it. She actually you can kind of see it here because I believe that's Iron Arm, whatever. And he goes to hit it, and she like shakes it off. She's like, "Ow, that actually hurt!" And then she rips his sleeve off, and it turns out he has basically like gauntlets down his whole forearm, and that's it. So he his like quite literally Iron Arm. He's like, it's not like he's trained himself to where the bones are impervious. He's literally wearing armor. So.
Well, that's cheating.
Yeah, it is basically. But this one has sound. Let me just find it. I think it's this one here. Yep. Okay.
潇洒人间一线牵，江南鹤都要低头求我怜。无影去无踪，今朝踏破鹅登峰。
What did that guy have? Just two giant clubs?
Yeah, you can tell that they're very empty. because the way he swings them, there's like no weight to them, but they almost look like the tops of pillars or something, like something you would have at the top of like a fancy pillar in a building. I do like how she makes fun of them by making her own silly name as she goes along, and I tried to get as many of her really fucking dudes up, like the guy getting his mouth cut and the slapping people in the face and stuff. But
epic fight. I don't know how long it goes on. It feels like a full 5 minutes of just nonstop.
It was about 4 minutes. I trimmed it down to about 30 seconds, and it was really difficult.
Yeah.
Most of these fights go on for minimum 4 or 5 minutes. And but yes, she's I love the very end too, how the camera work. If I could, I'd play it again, but I don't. We'd have to go through the whole thing. The camera work of they show her do her little pose, and then it spins from behind her, and the building is just falling apart. I love scenes like that.
Incredible piece of cinematography. Yeah. I mean, you can tell that Zhang Ziyi was a dancer because she started her career as a dancer, and her movement is so fluid and so beautiful. Just that little flourish she does at the end, it's gorgeous, and you really need to be a trained dancer or martial artists to be able to pull that off, because it looks incredible, and the camera just holds. There's no flashy editing. It's just her, and it looks amazing.
I wish I could have added more of the scene. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of really good parts I had to trim, unfortunately, just because they were just too long. Some of the sequences she does, if you cut it in half, it just didn't have the same effect. But they were like 11 to like 15 seconds worth of her doing really cool shit. And I really wish I could have left more in there.
And one thing you really need to pay attention to in this, you should pay attention to, is the music. It's reflective of the scene. So the music in this is incredible. It's a flute and drums, and it's polyphonic. I think it has multiple time signatures. So the drums are playing in one time signature; they're quite slow, and the flute is playing in a different time signature. I've never seen the score, so I don't know what they are. But so they're playing at different time signatures, possibly at the same tempo. I'm not sure, and so it's quite polyphonic. But what the composer's name is Tan Dun, and I think what he's doing here is that the sort of bass drums. Can you just play the music again there? Can you play?
I mean, I can play the whole clip again. It's you can talk over it. You can talk over it.
We can hear the music.
Hold on, let me pull it back up here because I was on the chat. You could actually talk over it. It's just because it has sound doesn't mean you can.
You can hear the drums and the flute, and the drums are supposed to symbolize the sort of rough, crappy fighters that she's up against. And she is the flute. The flute represents her, and it's just kind of cutting through the drums, and it's not matching up with it. It's like it's too fast for the drums, and I think that's the symbolism. That when a composer is able to do that, he's able to make the music match the on-screen action symbolically, and in terms of pacing, it's just amazing.
Gives her.
Hi, Mini Despot. Hello, Prince of Antrim.
Junior.
But unfortunately, I can't lower the sound on the video clip. It's what it's at. So
the flute gives her like the appearance of being like a tiny little bird floating over all of these, barbarians or whatever. It's really good. And if I'm not mistaken, this won for original score that year, I believe.
I mean, the score's incredible.
Several.
I mean, listen to it if you're. I mean, if you're stuck for something to listen to, there's nothing in the popular music charts worth listening to anymore. Check out the score for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon by Tan Dun. Fucking excellent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing. Whenever we did the Echo Chamber, I mean, first of all of you guys, well, at least you and Echo. I'm not sure about Greg, but you always had. I learned a lot about scores and soundtracks and stuff from you guys because you both know music a lot better than I don't know shit about music. And so now that you're mentioning it, I never would have put that's definitely one of those psychosomatic things where I'm not even aware that they're doing that. The like, the drum on the bottom being very, almost barbaric sounding versus the flute being very, not rhythmic,
Nimble.
nimble. Yeah, there we go. That's what
Very melodic, very dancing.
that's actually I would have never thought of that had you not said it. Now I'm gonna try to, going forward as a critic, I'm gonna try to pay more attention to soundtracks and score. It's just I don't have a music background, so I forget that stuff a lot. But and by the way, it was great. We got like I said, we had a little cameo from the Prince of Antrim.
Yeah.
But I don't even remember where we are in the movie.
Well, if the soundtrack is doing its job, it's not something you would necessarily notice at all. It's helping pull
Same
you
with
into that
CGI.
experience and give you the emotion,
Yeah, and cinematography. If it's good, you generally don't notice it, especially on a first watch.
So Jen does return from her little excursion, and at this point, Michelle Yeoh is basically like, "No, I figured your ass out. Like, I'm not playing games anymore." Let's see. So it's got a few more, and they pretty much get ready for combat. This is probably it's either well, I guess it's all the same fight sequence because the one right after this is also the part of this. It's just the second half, but I have a clip in there. But I think this one's soundless, so we can talk over it. Where is it? Here it is. Sound. This is probably the longest fight scene in the whole movie. And it's really interesting because I couldn't get too much of it, but there's a lot of different weapon work in here. And my editing, unfortunately, trims that. Like, that sequence is a lot longer than I was able to leave it in. Because it's just impossible for me to allow that and not get the stream ripped down. But essentially they keep well, Jen doesn't need to because she has the greatest sword in the history of swords. But Michelle Yeoh has to keep switching weapons because it keeps cutting through her weapons, and which allows. I love this fight scene because it allows Michelle Yeoh to show the range that she has with all these various weapons.
How long did it take to choreograph this thing?
Oh my god, this was probably the longest sequence to choreograph in the whole movie.
Just watching this again, it's crazy. Just like you said, just switching from weapons, and she masters all these styles. Maybe not that one, but
not
that one. She does a good job.
That was a great timing.
I love Zhang.
I might replay this one after.
The look
that
Zhang Ji gives Zhang Ji gives Michelle Yeoh, this little sort of smile when she can't hold the club or whatever the fuck that thing is. That's really good. Zhang Ji's facial expressions in this entire movie are amazing. She's an incredibly expressive actor. She's an amazing range, and she's able to communicate very subtle nuance through her facial expressions. Really, she's a tremendously talented actress, naturally talented.
Yeah,
By the way,
she's really good with her eyes, telling a story with her eyes.
I can't hold it in. I have to know, lads. I have to know who's hotter in this movie, Michelle Yeoh or Zhang Ji.
Oh, that's close. That's
I say Michelle Yeoh. Right?
Michelle Yeoh has a bit more curves going on with her body.
Yeah,
she doesn't. I would say facially, Jen is, but she's also younger. So, like, she has a damn near perfect face. Let me see if I can find a good one of. She's like a damn near perfectly symmetrical face.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michelle Yeoh for sure. But if I was Jen's age, it would be no contest.
Oh, no way, man! If I was Jen's age, you'd want to go for the older woman. Something to brag to the boys about.
Yeah, it's weird because at a certain point, you're no longer chasing MILFs; you're chasing women your own age. It's like.
There's no shame either one of these choices.
I like a bad girl, so I'm going with Jen.
I think
there's no wrong answer.
There's no wrong. That's the best part.
The sharp cheekbones definitely do something for. I was wondering when someone was going to ask this question. I figured it would be around here in the script. But yeah, they definitely. And it does play off because Jade Fox, like I said earlier, she's not a particularly attractive. Actually, she's not like super ugly or anything, but she's not like that. She's supposed to be kind of background, subtle, easily ignorable person. So the fact that she's not, working class, but like, so it plays into the fact that she's just kind of homely, I guess the term would be.
It fits her background story as well, because she was pump and dumped by Li Mubai's master. Her background story is that she wanted to go into the Wudang Temple, and evidently Li Mubai's master led her on and said, yeah, if you bounce up and down in my cock for a while, I'll let you in. And then she did, and he didn't. And
I forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah, that's really her motivation.
She was very upset by that, so she murdered him and stole the secret book, and that she was able to learn from the book all these moves. But she's illiterate, so she couldn't. And even if she was literate, it wouldn't matter. She doesn't have the education to understand the text. Whereas Jen is obviously from an aristocratic background and is very literate. And bear in mind, literacy in Chinese culture is different from what it is, in the West, especially in the ancient sense, because Chinese writing consists of thousands and thousands of characters that have to be learned individually, whereas they don't have an alphabet system. So there are different levels of literacy in China.
That's a lot of the Asian alphabets are basically just every word is its own symbol.
Yeah, so that's a big part of Jade Fox's character background. She's essentially she's a villain. Like, she's unquestionably a villain, but at the same time, she does have motivation. Whereas in modern shite, what they would do is they would make her the hero. Like, if Disney were to remake this, which I'm sure they probably will one day, Jade Fox will be the hero, right?
Yeah, well, the misunderstood hero, yes.
Yeah, exactly. The misunderstood villain who's actually really a hero, and all the men are evil and incompetent.
Well, I mean, they do show several of the men being rather incompetent, but honestly, it's weird. I wanted to bring this up earlier, and I sort of forgot to. Is there, if this was made right now, do you think it would be called woke? I wonder, because there is a lot of, the main through line story for the most part is tradition and women's place in tradition. That's pretty much a huge portion of the story. And there is, I mean, even if you take out the fact that, there is a small woman beating up men, even though, like, we've already explained that it does have its place in the story. Would this be attacked as woke if it came out today?
By some people. So, some people would. Most critics with half a brain would say, no, this is not woke. It all makes sense. There is a very specific reason why these women are capable of beating up men. Just like in June, there's a reason why the Bene Gesserit are able to control men's minds and things like that. But a lot of people a lot of critics and people online who don't understand the difference between good story world, good world building, and woke, they would just say, no, it's just girl boss shit. And it's like, the well has been poisoned, though. I reckon if you were to see a trailer of this today and it was showing you all of these flashy people, a lot of people would just roll their eyes and say, fuck that, more girl boss trash, no chance am I watching that. A lot of people would be turned off if it featured a lot of this choreography in the trailers, because it's not the movie's fault, it's not anybody's fault, it's just the well has been so fucking poisoned by Hollywood and their girl boss trash that anytime women... it happened with Furiosa. Furiosa is quite a good movie. And Anne Taylor-Joy, or Anya Taylor-Joy, she wasn't a girl boss in it, and there was some really, really good fight choreography, but the movie failed in part because people thought it was girl boss trash, and they just want no part of that.
Oh, can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Cause I did a video about the Furiosa thing. I would say a lot of the problem with that were the shill places like Collider, because they were writing articles saying that, oh, Mad Max, without Mad Max, we don't need him, we have her. So I think, like I said, Poison in the Well, a lot of places...
Collider's one of the worst ones, because they just try to release shit just to get clicks. Like, they're pure clickbait. They don't even try to write something.
Absolutely, but a lot of places were kind of doing stuff like that. So I was just saying, Poison in the Well. Yes, I think a lot of places like that would write, oh, the women carry this the entire way, and we don't need the men. So yeah, this would be a movie that I think if it came out today, it would flop, because we'd see the trailer and say, nope, we've seen this 1,000 times before.
Yeah. It's definitely a case study one could have about this, because like we've said multiple times just now, is that everything makes sense in this world as long as you're willing to read between the lines. But there are a lot of people who are very surface level and refuse to read between those lines. Let's see, what do I have next? Oh, but yeah, so I do have another clip. This one does this have sound? Let me see. This one, I don't think has. Yeah, this one does not have sound either, I don't think. So it's the rest of the fight, which takes place outside in quite possibly the most beautiful location ever filmed in a fight scene. So you can unmute yourselves, guys. So this is definitely the most Wuxia of the fights, because the whole thing takes place on treetops and you see them run on water and stuff. But this one is also very important because there's a lot of exposition mid-fight as the motivations and stuff. Unfortunately, I guess I didn't use the one that had the subtitles for this one. But
It's a hell of a fight scene.
Yeah, pure fantasy.
Yeah, it is.
But really, the motive. There's one of the main motivations here is for Li Mubai really wants to train Jen because he sees her potential, but thinks she's basically learning rubbish. She has, it's like I said earlier. You have like a McDojo, and if you have a really good student that's learning from a shit master, but learning well, and essentially says, she doesn't have the, she hasn't earned the right to use this sword, but she could. Is basically what he's saying.
And he's also
Two, there's a there's a contrast in Lee Mubai's master not training what's her name, or the Jade Fox, and he's wanting to train this girl.
Yeah, he's
found
the piece of his purpose, I think, not just in connecting with Michelle Yeoh's character, but now he sees a pupil that would be worthy of both of their time.
One thing that he does mention is that, and it's a little bit before that, it was when they were talking before she returned, that he believes that they would make an exception for her at Wudang Temple. Also, I mean, the fact that the master who was really against women training there is kind of really dead. So there's a possibility that the new leadership, so to say, might be interested. But that's one of the things, and he's almost taking it upon himself that if she can't even train there, he'll just train her kind of, it's almost like what Qui-Gon said about Anakin in Phantom Menace, where it's like, well, if the Jedi Temple won't do it, I'll just do it myself, kind of thing.
That's actually an excellent comparison, Darkar, because you can see the lost potential of the prequels. If the prequels had a sort of Anakin Obi-Wan relationship much closer to the Li Mubai Jen relationship, it would have been much more convincing. For example, I think that the first mistake that George Lucas made was making Anakin a little boy. He should have been a teenager in the first movie.
100% correct.
Yep, agree.
And it should have been something like this. Anakin already has a master, but it's it's not a Sith or a Jedi. It's just that sort of, it's a kind of Force user who doesn't really know what he's doing. A kind of like Jade Fox. And then Qui-Gon comes in and tries to get Anakin off that, and that would have been a much better starting off point. Yeah, that was great.
I always agree that the biggest problem is the age that they went with. If he would have been 14, it would have made a little bit more sense for the horniness and all that stuff for Amidala and all that stuff.
Well, that would have happened at any age, I bet.
I don't think. I mean, it's a little weird at 9.
It's uncomfortable at 9. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. But yeah. So we briefly saw it in the clip, but Jade Fox after Jen jumps in to get the sword, she kind of almost drowns because I don't care how powerful you are, you still need to breathe air. It doesn't really matter how if you can jump off of trees and stuff if you don't have the ability to breathe. But Jade Fox basically swoops down like a bat and grabs her and takes her off to this weird underground lair thing, like cave.
It's her hideout.
Yeah, it's her.
she's become a very tragic figure in the story by this stage because the only thing that Jade Fox has left now is revenge. She wants to take revenge on Jen and kill her, but she wants to do this in front of Li Mu Bai as a sort of revenge against him because Jen has humiliated her and has surpassed her, and she's so corrupted by her own jealousy and narcissism by this stage that she can't see past her revenge motive. It's a very tragic end for Jade Fox, but it's all set up brilliantly.
So it's definitely so there's two ways you can go as a teacher, as an instructor. And in this instant, there's like the father figure style, or paternal style, whatever you want to call it, like parent style, and then there's like the little brother, little sister style. And this is definitely the latter, where she doesn't really view her as a person that she's trying to help get better. She's viewing her more as I would like you to get better, but I still want to be better than you. And those instructors, those teachers in anything tend to be really, really bad. And that's because you're going to be the kind of person who's going to hide things from your student because you're afraid it's your own ego that's being bruised. Whereas Li Mu Bai definitely has more of I see the potential. I think you could be greater than me. And those people are the ones that tend to be the best teachers because it's not necessarily about them. It's about, it's partially about them because you do get an ego boost from helping someone get better and become the best that they can. But it's more about, I know my limit and I can get somebody past that. And that's really where the contrast is between them as teachers.
You see that symbolism when Li Mu Bai throws the Green Destiny into the river. She refuses to become a student, and then he says, well, then the Green Destiny is worthless, and he throws it away. And I think what that's symbolizing is his understanding, his view of the entire purpose of his martial art and of the Green Destiny, the way he sees it. If he can't pass on this knowledge, if he can't find a student who is worthy of that knowledge, then there's no point in the Green Destiny. Just throw it away. It's worthless. It's just as a weapon, it is worthless. All it is a weapon. It has no value, so he throws it away. It has to be an instrument of passing knowledge from one generation to the next. And if he can't do that, then there's no point. And that's why he throws it away. And I love that.
A weapon
throws it away. Go ahead.
Yeah, a weapon is a tool, and without the training to use that tool, it's just a blunt instrument.
Well, it's a really sharp instrument, but I get what you mean.
Is it almost like the Tony Stark and Spider-Man thing? Would you need the suit, you're not worthy of it, and stuff like that?
That's actually a really good comparison. Yes, if you need it, then you're not worthy of it because you're not. If you can't do what you need to without something, and be the person you need to without it, then it is too important to you for you to be the person you need to be.
Well, that's why Steve Rogers works and Captain Falcon doesn't. It's because Steve Rogers was Steve Rogers before he was super.
No, fuck all that, man. Let me tell you something. Anthony Mackie's way better because he has part of Ant-Man's suit. He has like adamantium. He has fucking wings. All right, he's like the Swiss Army man, Captain America. He's way better, and he's black.
Look, I got to address this real quick. He does so. He's always had it's not Ant-Man's mask. I know you guys keep saying that. It's not Ant-Man's mask.
I'm sorry, man. He looks ridiculous. Did no one
I get that, but it's not Ant-Man's mask.
He looks ridiculous. He looks like a Swiss Army knife walking around. Yeah. It's just dumb. This is dumb. Fuck this. I'm going home.
I'm glad that my video took off because I wasn't on any streams for that one, and I had a lot of things to say about that movie. It was just like, but yeah, that's for a different day. Maybe one day we'll get into shitty movies.
Let's not poison Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with that abomination.
There's about to be some poisoning in the very near future, so don't worry.
Jesus.
Let's see. Oh yes, this is yeah. I have something to say about that scene, but I don't even. I don't even remember what happens in this scene. What happens in this scene? I'm sorry, like right here. This is.
This is where Michelle Yeoh.
She's getting her. Go ahead.
Well, Michelle Yeoh reveals to the old woman, basically why she couldn't kill Jen. the old woman says, "Why couldn't you kill Jen?" And Michelle Yeoh says, "I didn't have the heart to kill her."
That was it.
It's a little character reveal. Where Michelle Yeoh, she's angry and very upset that the spoiled wee bitch, and Jen is a spoiled wee bitch, make no mistake. She's an aristocrat after all. But at the same time, Jen, quite rightfully, she wasn't brutal enough. She didn't have the heart to put her down or to kill her. She didn't want to kill her. It's a nice scene. It's a very nice character moment. It's short, but I think it's quite important.
There's also a thing about Jen
and toward the end of it.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Sorry.
That's fine.
I was just going to say, toward the end of it, you see Michelle is looking out the window, and the Jade Fox lets her see. I think the Jade Fox did that to lure them back to the cave.
Yeah,
I never thought about that. That's a good catch. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
because she stays hidden for most of the movie.
Yeah, one thing about
I just assumed that
Jen
was
and Michelle Yeoh's relationship in this. So Michelle Yeoh was engaged, then her betrothed dies, and then she's basically not able to pursue the man that she actually loves. And Jen is kind of the opposite. She kind of has her fling and then is betrothed to a guy. And so there's definitely a clash of view there in how they handle their lives. Because so I think that's part of this, that's why she kind of views her. Not only is it that she's an aristocrat and she has, she was classically trained and doesn't have to run this, she could just be a pretty little girl who gets taken care of. But the things that Michelle Yeoh wishes that she could just go and do and just be with the guy she wants to be with. And Jen has not only done that, she's also now she's not doing it. She's been like, nah, I'm not going to do that shit. I'd rather just marry this big fat bureaucrat and let stuff happen. And then obviously we saw what happened with all that.
Someone needs to turn around to Jen and say, look, Jen, marry the bureaucrat, take his money, and you can have your chads on the side. It's not going to be difficult for you.
Yeah, she can have all the chads.
You can still have a good life. He'll be off in some far-flung corner of the empire, and you can be chilling out with your side pieces in Beijing or something. It's not so bad.
But now back at the temple, the most random thing that ever happens. She's just like, here's my nipples for some reason. I'm not really sure what that's about.
Well, it's not, I don't think the nipples were the point of it, but we do appreciate
but it definitely, it's because she's drugged, really what it is she's not in her right state of mind. Is this?
I don't see her offering herself sexually here. It's much more of
it's not that. It's she's completely opiumed out of her fucking brain is what's going on.
Stab me in the heart, kill me kind of thing.
I also think that it's an indication of the kind of indoctrination she has received from Jade Fox coming out in this state of inebriation. Yeah. Because Jade Fox was obviously involved with Li Bai's master, and then he pumped and dumped her. So she has told her apprentice, Jen, that these Wudang types are all man whores, and, they just want to fuck you and chuck you and be done with you, and they have no respect for any women, and we must take our revenge. And you can imagine her whispering all this poison in her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a little hint of it coming out there, when she's inebriated.
Yeah, no, I could see that. That I didn't really think of that, but yeah, that there's a possibility that she's maybe using it as even a distraction tactic. But yeah, it doesn't work, I guess, and he realizes quickly that she's, like I said, she's opiumed out of her mind. She's drugged. She's not in the right state of mind at all. But this is all just a huge trap, which I do have a clip of, and this one has sound. So let me just it's this one here.
徒儿不孝，我要的是玉蛟龙的命，不练不成。而你却是剑意激情，蛟龙，我唯一的情，唯一的仇。
I think that was incredibly violent. When we had most of this movie is just dancing on air and I'm just gonna chop your pants off and stuff like that. Just the way the sword exploded into that woman.
Yeah, it gets
I
brutal.
think it came out of nowhere.
And that's a lot more blood than we've seen before, too.
Oh yeah.
Well, too, that's the green destiny in the hands of a master.
Exactly.
We haven't seen that in the whole movie.
This is probably
up to this point.
It's probably the most important scene in the whole movie. I know I realize it's the climax of the movie, but everything comes to a head right here. Everything that we've talked about, the jealousy aspect, the not like Despot said that Jade Fox does not have the capabilities of going any further because she's illiterate essentially and can't even understand what she's gotten probably farther than she should have, to be honest with you. There's the line in there. It's like, you're my only family, but you're also my enemy. It's like I was saying, not viewing the person as a true student, but as more of a rival. There's just so much going on in approximately 5 minutes in this sequence.
This is what good writing used to look like, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying earlier about Disney Brain. A lot of people, when they see good writing like this, it just kind of confuses them. They would need to watch it a few times before they begin to absorb it properly. But I do wonder if you were to show this movie to the average 18-year-old American today, who's still into watching movies, would they understand it? Would they even enjoy it? I don't know. I mean, I loved this as a teenager.
I love when multiple stories. So like. Really, the hallmark of good writing is that all of your storylines converge at some point. This is the convergence point. All of them have slowly but surely kind of closed in on each other, and so the only one that kind of fell off and died was the dead father girl that she called a slut storyline. That kind of fell off. But other than that, every one of them had this through line that ends up here, and I wonder, here's the thing is, how many people would even make it to this point in the movie with modern attention spans? Because this is a movie that you have to kind of watch twice. And I realized that after watching it twice in a row, you notice so much more leading into this sequence.
Yeah, the rewatchability of this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I think I would love to get the panel's opinion on this. See, I think the real test of a movie is rewatchability. Can a movie be good if it has pretty much zero rewatchability?
Good, yes. Great, no. And what I mean by that is, I still think that the immediate experience that you have with something, as long as you can remember how that felt, is still good. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people... I think it has a little bit of rewatchability, but I know a lot of people loved the first time they watched Deadpool 3 and they were like having fun with all the cameos and all that stuff. And I would never call that great. I would never call that. Yeah. I would never call that great cinema though.
But I mean, that's an example of a movie that gets worse the more you rewatch it. Spider-Man No Way Home isn't an example of a movie that gets far worse if you attempt to rewatch it. In fact, you try to watch that today, you're like, Jesus Christ, did I actually like this? It's almost embarrassing. Whereas this one just gets better.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between good and great. Good, if it makes you, if you have fun with it, it makes you feel good at the moment. That's good. If you can do it multiple times, that's great. And there's probably a level even above that. I would go like fantastic or something. That's where I think what you've hit on is the line right there.
Yeah, I think that's a good definition. Not every film has to be great. I thoroughly enjoyed Deadpool 3. I'm not in a rush to go back and watch it, but I would.
I've rewatched it. It's not the worst re-experience, but it definitely loses a lot of its luster because now the cameos are coming up and stuff.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have.
But no one's ever going to try and claim that Deadpool 3 is great cinema. It's
No,
not,
I don't think anybody should.
but just like with
Yeah.
the Star Wars sequels and a million other things today, no one's going to go back and watch them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you watch a movie once. Like I've watched every of the sequel trilogy of Star Wars one time. I mean, I think I've watched The Force Awakens maybe 2 or 3 times, but the other two, literally the time I saw it in theaters, never again.
No, I'm the same, man. I've never gone back to them because I saw it in theaters, and the first one I quite liked at the time. I thought it was fun, but I mean, I was in the theater. I hadn't seen Star Wars in 10 years. Everybody was excited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it sort of dawned on me, wow, that was just a ripoff of the OG. And see, with the other two, I've never seen them again. I saw them once, and I've never ever.
You don't need to. So that's the thing is, with movies like that, the rewatchability you don't need because the story is so bare bones garbage. Even if it was good, you don't. There's nothing to it. There's nothing to go back and exactly. There's no depth. So if you can watch a movie once and not and feel good about yourself, but then you go back and you're like, I don't really need to watch this again. It could still be good, but there's the depth. The depth is really what does it right there. And then with the Star Wars sequels and a lot of other Marvel movies and a lot of even other shit, if you leave the cinema and you're like, I'm never watching that again, but I can still recall every detail about those two movies because there's barely anything to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
you make a good point.
Is the key, I think.
And to give you an idea of the amount of effort that went into this movie, so I was reading the Wikipedia page of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Ang Lee worked 8 months without a break, and that not even a half day off. And by the end of it, he was just in a bad place. Let's say he thought he might have a heart attack. I think it said that he was worried that he would have a heart attack because his mental health and his physical health had deteriorated so badly over the course of the shoot. But he worked 8 months straight without a break, and that gives you some idea. Gives you some idea, and that level of effort from the director is going to form the center of the kind of work ethic of the entire project. So this is a gigantically high effort production from pretty much everybody, but obviously especially Ang Lee.
And well, I mean, he would go on to do the Hulk shortly after this.
We don't talk about that.
Well, I mean, you can see that. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, just in your own videos. You might have put a great deal of effort into one video, and then you feel a bit creatively exhausted, and you kind of fuck up the next one. I know that's happened to me, and I think that might have happened with Ang Lee. He was so creatively exhausted and burned out from this movie that what he really needed was to take a year off or a couple of years off and just read, watch other movies, study, research, fill his mind with all this refreshing culture. And instead, he just jumped onto the Hulk, and it was never gonna be good after this. Like the exertion he put into this, he needed some time off.
Yeah, there's also something to be said for taking a softball. After you.
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
100% agree. When you've done a massive exertion, just take, like you say, take a softball. I do that. I recently did a big video, which was very high effort, and my next video is just going to be a sort of low effort and softball video, just a bit of fun to chill out.
I'm kind of like that with this. Is I was pumping out video after video, and a lot of there was some good and some bad, but it was definitely draining. So I kind of this year I've decided I'm going to slow down my output of actual pre-made videos, and I obviously have the streams going constantly, so my channel is always active. But it definitely, I know exactly where you're coming from. Like this, when I was doing. When I was covering the Rings of Power stuff, and then I was also doing Agatha at the time, and I was putting out a video like every 2 weeks, and not small video, not like 8-minute videos, like half-hour videos, and I was just exhausted. I was just like, I didn't want to do the next one. I would like sit there to script, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And you can almost feel that in the Agatha videos that they became not as interesting. I mean, it wasn't as interesting a topic as the Rings of Power, but you can almost feel the energy level drop. Because I was doing too much at once.
Yeah, it would be an interesting thing to look into, but it does make sense that the Hulk was what it was because he was just so drained from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, it's not a surprise.
But so Li Mubai is now officially poisoned. At first, they don't think they know what it is, but Jen does know what it is. She does. Jade Fox does mention that she knows what poison it is. But it takes time to make the antidote, and she's going to have to go get the ingredients, basically. So she leaves. And unfortunately for Li Mubai, she's not going to be able to get it fast enough. It's already attacking his heart, which is what specifically they say. It's a poison that goes straight to your heart. I forget which one they call it, but essentially it's just him and Michelle Yeoh left, and this is the moment where he just kind of realizes this is his last chance to have this heart to heart with her, and he's going to take it because he's got nothing left to lose, basically. I do have the clip of it. This one's a little shorter, but it does have the sound.
生命已经到了尽头，我只有一息尚存。
提升这一口气，到达你这一生追求的境地，别放下，浪费在我身上。
我已经浪费了这一生，我要用这个气对你说，我一直深爱着你。就算落进最黑暗的地方，我的爱也不会让我成为永远的孤魂。
I'll make a weird comparison here. I kind of feel like you take away all the action and you have just this. This is a banger right here. Like
this scene is
pure
fantastic.
cinema right here. I'm kind of thinking about like Godzilla minus one. It's like you take away Godzilla from that, and you have just the story of the guy with the woman and the daughter.
It still works.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to have an action kung fu epic like this, but the best part about it is a scene like this of just two people having a heart to heart. That's it.
Go to the previous still, please, Darkar.
Sure. Yeah. No
Notice the visual symbolism here. So the fire is burning its last embers there, and that obviously is visually symbolic of his life sort of draining away. But at the same time, this little amber fire is bathing them in this lovely glowing warm light, and that's like he's using the last little bits of his life to bathe her in his love. It's just that beautiful cinematography reflecting the thematic narrative in the scene. Gorgeous direction from Ang Lee. And this movie's full of that. When I was watching it last night, I was noticing a lot of visual symbolism, which I might actually do a video on if I get the chance, because there's a lot of it in this movie, a lot of it.
Yeah, he understands the graphic language better than most directors I've seen.
What has he been doing lately?
Ang Lee? I don't know, look it up.
It's just kind of weird that we're watching this right now, and then of course the next thing he did was the Hulk. It's like,
well, I mean, I looked it up, and he's definitely peaked. Directors like
he hasn't done shit since 2019. Gemini Man was the last thing he did.
They have their peak and then they have their fall off. And I mean, he did Hulk after Crouching Tiger, which he really shouldn't have. Then he did Brokeback Mountain. And I'm gonna I'm gonna be controversial and say Brokeback Mountain is badly dated. It's not a good movie when you watch it today.
It was dated before it even came out, really, to be honest with you.
It's got nothing to do with the homosexuality. That's fine. It's due to lots of other things. He's trying to do too much in it. It occurs over too long a narrative. The acting comes off as hammy at times. And I know we don't like to say that because Heath Ledger died. But it's a hard movie to criticize. It's certainly not a popular movie to criticize, but it's not a good movie, you guys. Like, if you go back and watch it today, everybody thinks it's a great movie because nobody's watched it in 20 years. It's really not. Then he made 2007. He did an absolutely incredible movie in 2007 called Lust Caution. That's Chinese language. That's a brilliant movie. Fucking brilliant. Taking Woodstock 2009, I think, is pretty rubbish. Life of Pi, I saw once and haven't rewatched. Has anybody seen Life of Pi?
No, I was going to say he made a slight. I was going to say that seems to be where he made a slight return, because that was before the Academy Awards had their full drop off. And he did win. what is it? He was nominated for Best Director for that one, so
I
he at
remember it
least
being
came back to some prominence with that.
I remember it being pretty good. And then he did a thing in 2016 called Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. So don't know what that is. And then 2019 Gemini Man, which is ass.
That
Anybody
killed
seen
his
Gemini
career.
Man?
That
was
killed his
fucking dreadful. So pretty much this is his peak. After this, he only does one more truly great movie, Lost Caution in 2007. So it's kind of sad for a director to show such incredible promise, but to not really be able to follow it up with a career that he should have had.
Well, if you can put out one masterpiece like this, you're doing better than most.
That's true, and you got to, and that's not like I say. Lost Caution is a masterpiece, I think. So I give him full credit for that. But it is a shame the director of such promise, and it's happened as well. A more recent example is Damien Chazelle. He did Whiplash, brilliant movie, and then he did La La Land, which you can kind of already concede a decline. It's a bit tacky, and then he went and did Babylon, which is just fucking unwatchable. It's trash.
No.
And I have no confidence that he will ever live up to the promise he showed in Whiplash. So it's a sad thing when a director goes in that direction, but I think that happened with Ang Lee, unfortunately.
It just seems like they were just throwing crap at a wall, hoping it would stick. That's such a weird combination. You have this one, and then you have the Hulk, and then Brokeback Mountain. None of those movies have anything in common.
Yeah, it's a bit. It's almost like Hollywood were courting him after this. And he was kind of like Hulk was a paycheck, let's face it. Brokeback Mountain it's like, did he write that so he could get in good with Hollywood? I don't know. It was obviously a lot of critical acclaim at the time, but go back and watch it today, and it's not good.
Did he write Brokeback Mountain?
No, he has.
I still have this page up.
The writer he works with is a guy called.
He only wrote 4 movies, and they were all in the beginning of his career.
Yeah, no, this was written, but Brokeback Mountain was just 2 screenwriters. I've never heard of them.
He was only the director. He wasn't even the producer on it. So that was probably
he had nothing to do with the pre-production or anything. I think he was just brought on as director, and he does a decent job, but it's just a shit script.
Generally, it seems like the ones where he also produces are a little on the better side. I know you said Taking Wood. I've never seen Taking Woodstock, but it seems like Life of Pi, Lust Caution. This, I don't know that one, but it seems like the ones that he also produces are generally better, probably because he has more of a say in what's going on with them. The director, it's just like, okay, I'm here he's probably there for the paycheck, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, and don't think that just because he's a brilliant director that his finances are in order. The guy might have been in debt half the time, and he needed to take these shitty projects on to get the cash.
Especially if he's producing things, that means he's putting money down on them. So
yeah,
there's
a lot of the time,
possibility.
the directors, they have to take this garbage just to get the money, or because they think, well, if I do this shit movie, then the studio is going to give me a good movie. And like Sydney Sweeney, she did Madam Web so that she could do that rom-com.
She's in a lot. I mean, that really worked out for her though, because she's been in a lot of stuff ever since, or at least
it worked out well.
The project.
But like, she knew that Madam Web was dog shit when she signed on for it, but she did it so that because Universal promised her the rom-com afterwards. Anything that Universal.
Yeah, and there's I'm sure if that would actually probably make an interesting study to go back and look at, times where people took bad projects because they knew it would set them up for other successful ones. I'm sure that that's something that could be easily tracked if you really look at if you take like 3 or 4 directors or 3 or 4 actors and kind of look at it. But back to this though, one thing that I did want to say is that we've taken the emotional ride with them throughout the whole movie. So that's one of the reasons why this scene has such punch. Obviously, anytime a main character dies, they're supposed to punch. But the punch to this one is we're like rooting for these two the whole time. Like, just stop being idiots. Like, we're just sitting here like, no, just kiss, guys, just kiss. That's what we're doing the whole movie. And when they finally do, it's in the last moments of his life. So we've literally taken the emotional roller coaster back to the station. That's kind of how I feel about this scene.
Yep, it's a hell of a ride.
Of course, they get back not in time. Like, if there's anything that's cliche about this movie, it's this scene. The fact that they walk in right after he dies, like, hey, we've got the. Oh, sorry. The horse needed to take a shit. Like, that's basically what happened.
Man.
The Simpsons actually have. Do you know the monorail episode? They make fun
I'm not
of
a
that,
big Simpsons
trope.
guy.
Okay, so they make fun of that trope. There's an episode where some shyster comes into Springfield and he convinces him to build a monorail, and then some genius scientist teams up with Marge, and they figure out that the monorail is going to kill everybody once it goes off, and they arrive just as the monorail takes off, and everyone's on board, and it's going to crash. And then the Simpsons make fun of that trope. You know, the hero's arriving just when it's too late, and the scientist genius says, "Oh, I shouldn't have stopped for that haircut." It's that same thing. It's just that the Simpsons in its peak made fun of tropes so well. And then when you said, "Oh, I had to stop to take a shit," that just reminded me of that.
Yeah. So we just had 2 super chats come in. I'll do them right now because they're relevant to what we were just talking about.
I think
First
one earlier also.
The first one from Jacob WD4. There was one earlier as well. I missed it.
Yeah, there was one much earlier in the stream. I forget what it said.
I don't see that one. I'll have to go back and find it. So I'll go back when you guys are talking later. I'll go back through the actual chat of the, but from $5 from Jacob WD40. Deadpool 3 is shit. It desecrates Logan's grave, cucks Wade, mocks 2005 Human Torch. The plot is more holy than a strainer. Anyway, good streams. At least he ended it with a nice little.
Agree. I'll have to say.
Yeah, I still had fun with it. I'm not. If in my review, I specifically said that it's garbagely written, but it's enjoyable garbage. Like it's.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. It's true. It's fun to watch.
It knows.
I've always maintained you can like bad things.
Yeah,
it's not
like Madam Web. I quite like Madam Web. I like Megalopolis. Megalopolis is one of the worst movies of the decade, and I enjoyed it.
I remember being on the stream with you, and you were like, I was expecting you to tear that apart. You're like, you literally were sitting back like this. You're like, I liked it.
Yeah, that was all right.
I always say this. My example is always Rocky IV. If you actually look at Rocky IV through a critical eye, it's a garbage movie, but it's fun as fuck.
But it's fun.
It's fun. It's fun, but it is a shitty. At least the original cut. If you watch the updated, we removed the robot and added better scenes that came out about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. That one's a better cut, but it's you can have fun with a bad movie. And then we have one from RTNZ for 10 New Zealand dollars, which I don't know what that translates into, but I don't care. I don't care what anyone says. Ang Lee's Hulk is a great comic book film. It's messy, bizarre, and trippy, but still arguably the best and most accurate version of the Hulk. Not Banner on screen. I kind of can agree with that. It does get Hulk proper. I mean, I think the Incredible Hulk, the one from 2008, is also pretty good. I think that one gets a bad reputation because Disney wants to bury that one. Until recently, they wanted to bury that one so hard. But the general destructive nature of Hulk has slowly but surely tapered off through the later movies. They now to the point where you're not even seeing the Incredible Hulk. You're just seeing what's his face, the current actor. I can't remember. You're just seeing a big green Mark Ruffalo. That's all it is. It's not the Hulk anymore.
Yeah, disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah. So I will. I'll pull up the next slide, and then I'm going to pull up the. I'll pull up the stream and see if I can find the other because I missed it. But yeah, so he's obviously dead. The sword is now. It doesn't have an owner. So, what do you do with it? But
we have a super chat at 5:14 p.m.
Oh, that was long before the stream. It must not have got caught by the here because okay, I'll go back and I'll find that. I might not be able to pull it up on screen though. Actually, can you just read it out what it was, Adam?
Yeah, let me just finish skimming. I thought it was much earlier. My mistake.
Yeah, it must not have got caught because I'm scrolled all the way back to the beginning of this chat here, and it starts at 5:48. So it did not get caught by the one here. But if you could just read that one out and tell us what it was for and who it was.
$5 from Crowbar the Skull, who says, "Thank you for the great show. Who do you think is the main character in this movie?
We can address that at the end. Crowbar, I know you're still in the chat, so if you don't mind, we'll just get to these last few slides and then we'll address that at the end if you're cool with that.
That's a good question, actually.
Okay.
And thank you for your super chat. I'm sorry that it got lost in the. This is. I said it to the guys backstage. This is Streamlabs just kind of started this talk studio, so it's not fully ironed out. Sometimes those really early ones get lost, even in StreamYard and other things. So I apologize for not seeing that one. But so
yeah.
Does anyone have anything
like
to say
this
about
part
the?
Here that he.
Oh, go ahead. I'll go back.
They give him. Look who they give the sword. The guy that's been being beat up the entire movie.
They're like, you look
Here,
enough
take
like
care
Chow
of
Young
this."
Fat. You can have the sword. I'm telling you, from certain scenes, because they wear, not only do they have the same haircut, they're also they wear similar outfits for the most part throughout the movie. And if they're far enough away, sometimes you can't tell.
He looks like him right now.
Yeah, he looks like
what are we talking about here?
But I only have a couple more slides left, and so Jen goes to meet up with Dark Cloud at Wudang.
Wudang Mountain.
Yeah, Wudang Mountain. Wudang. And I wonder what they were gonna do immediately when she got there.
Yeah, just catching up with each other, you know.
I mean, it's been a while for him. It was probably very short. That's why she has so much energy, and he's just passed
the
out.
first time it was short, but they probably did it multiple times throughout the night. First time short, second time much better, third time he's a rock star, right?
I do have a clip here, no sound for this one, so we can talk over it. But here we have obviously the ivory comb, and he's like, "Oh shit, where'd she go? Did she just pump and dump me? What's going on?" But he meets up. She reminds him about the legend. She asks what he thinks he would have wished for, and then she makes her wish and throws herself off the bridge, which is, now this is the thing that if you do search out, if you type out like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the thing that you get the most is, what the hell does the ending mean?
Oh,
yes, I found that.
I was, when I was doing my research, I seen quite a bit of what, like, WTF about the ending.
It's everything explained to me.
Well, there's two. There's like the literal interpretation and the figurative interpretation. The literal interpretation is that she's, no matter what she does, she's not happy, so she's just going to end it. That's like the literal interpretation. And then the figurative one is that this is very symbolic of her making a wish, moving on with her life, because she could fly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys to discuss further, but obviously I go with the latter. Because he's clearly not freaking out. So I don't think this is a literal her throwing herself to her death. He'd be a little bit more distraught in this moment if that was going on.
I see the first thing I see is her realization of all of the trouble that she has caused, and it's an atonement for sin. That's on the very first layer of it. But I'm okay with an ambiguous ending. I don't know. Western media is not big on ambiguous endings at all.
I just like the confused look on his face. Like, it could go either way. It could be like, what the hell am I looking at right now? What's going on?
Is there any quotes from Ang Lee about the ending?
I don't really. I tend to avoid director and writer interpretations of endings of movies because I like to have my own version. I know a lot of people to this day hate that we don't get an answer at the end of Inception. And, but I think that that's the point. And I think that's the point here, is that sometimes you have to come to your own conclusions.
I mean, is it like this is your final test? You will dive to the bottom of the mountain. If you survive, you pass.
I mean, it could be. No. It could be. I mean, it's like I said, it's not any specific. thing.
It could be both ways. It could be she sees this jumping off as symbolic, but she's can obviously fly and not die.
This is another one,
the other.
her attaining
It could be either
enlightenment,
way.
because that's part of the story, is that he wasn't able to attain enlightenment. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, how Despot, what's your opinion on it?
I think it's the natural conclusion of her character arc, because she's never satisfied. She's always running away from something or other. So, for example, she is quite happy to get herself captured in the desert by Lo, and she spends time with him, but then she finds an excuse to take off from Lo and return to her parents and get engaged, and then she takes off on the engagement, and she begins to move away from Jade Fox, and she almost becomes the apprentice of Li Mubai, but she runs away from him. So she's constantly bouncing around. Ultimately, her character is that she's a woman who will never really be satisfied in life no matter what she does. And when she jumps into the clouds like that, it's like she's just accepting herself and embracing her identity. And she understands that no matter what, I think she went back to Lo with this idea that it would be perfect. And she was presented when she was presented with the reality that Lo is, especially when you remove the romantic desert surroundings and the bandit lifestyle, he's just some fucking guy. And I think she's pretty disappointed with the reality of it. And her understanding is, no matter where I am in life, no matter what happens, I'll always have this disappointment and this lust for something else. And rather than struggle with that, she just frees herself from all that. And her jumping over the bridge is like jumping into her own sort of fully self-actualized acceptance of self, something like that.
So basically, nothing's ever good enough for this woman, is what you're saying. That's the roundabout way.
Yeah, she's also accepting that, and maybe I also get the sense that her jumping off the bridge is an act of
atonement.
What's the word? Yeah, it's an act of atonement for everything she's done, in a sense. She says to Lo, make a wish, like, I'm offering myself. I'm going to throw myself off this bridge so that you can make a wish, because everything I've done up to this point has been selfish. So for once, I'm going to do something selfless. I also got that from it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in that ending.
She's freeing up the people around her from her unhappiness as well.
Yeah, it's there's a ton of symbolic depth and meaning going into that. I don't think anyone could ever pinpoint exactly what, even Ang Lee, I don't think, could really tell you. Because bear in mind, no matter what you write, no matter what you create, it comes from two places in your consciousness. It comes from either your conscious mind or your subconscious. It cannot come from anywhere else. So even if Ang Lee had very clear ideas about what he felt this ending meant, there are also subconscious ideas he had in his mind that come out in the ending that he might not himself understand. So that's also, I agree with Dark Iron that directors can never fully explain their meaning, because a lot of it is subconscious. Even they don't understand what they were doing a lot of it. And I think that this is an example of a scene where there is so much going on, both consciously and subconsciously, that no one will ever really know its full meaning. And I love that about it. I love that ambiguity. I actually think this is a perfect ending. This is one of my favorite movie scenes. I think it's absolutely beautiful and perfect and beautifully ambiguous.
I mentioned Inception because that's one that a lot of people point to, like, oh, what happened? And I always say that's the perfect way to end that movie, because it's not whether or not he's in the dream world anymore. It's that he doesn't give a shit whether he's in the dream world. That's kind of here.
No,
it's
fuck
like
that, Dark R. I want to know what happened. What happened? Was he awake or was it a dream? Asshole. It's a simple question. Yes or no?
I like Jacob's interpretation here. Way to mess up this dude's confidence. He's such a bad lay. She jumps off a bridge.
Maybe that's the ending. Maybe that's what the meaning is.
I asked Crowbar to retype his question so I could pop it up on the just on here. But before we do that, I'm just going to pull up the last slide, which there wasn't much in the way of backstage for this movie. So I just pulled up them at the festival there, or the International Film Festival that they were at. I think I don't know which one it was, but there just wasn't. I'm not shocked by that. A lot of these like the Chinese cinema, the Hong Kong cinema, they don't really have a lot of backstage or behind the scenes content for those. A lot of times they're just kind of like, this is what we have, there you go, and it's like we blew all the budget probably, but that's but yeah. And so that is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I'll just bring back, there we go. I'll pull up the
now, I didn't see it, but wasn't there like a prequel or
yeah, it's called
There
Sword of
was a
Destiny.
sequel. Apparently, I've never seen it, but apparently it was ass. It has Michelle Yeoh in it, but I think it's just a cash grab.
And here is, so obviously this was a super chat earlier, but I just had him retype it out so I could put it up on the screen. But from Crowbar, it was $5, I believe. Who do you think the main character is? I guess I was going to say Jen. I think it's Jen.
It's her story,
Jen drives the action of the plot. Everyone is reacting to her. When she and the plot follows her when she runs off, and when she takes the Green Destiny, that's the inciting incident. And when she takes off to kind of go rogue and cosplay as an adventurer, that causes other characters to commit actions. And then Jade Fox's her character motivation is based around Jen and Li Bai's to a large extent. So yeah, Jen's the main character.
Yeah, it definitely. So the main character, kind of what you just said, all of their actions should affect the plot. That's how main characters work. You can have multiple main characters in a story, but every single one of their actions should have a domino effect within the plot. And in this instance, because I know like really it comes down to, is it her story or is it Li Bai's story? I would say that Li Bai's story is ending when we meet him. Where he's the main character of his own story, but we're at the end of that story. Whereas this is really the peak of Jen's story. So that's why she's the main character. Anybody
I think
else?
Jen would probably be the only real answer to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's only through Jen inserting herself into other people's lives that the story is created and unfolds. So yeah, I think it's definitely her if you have to pick one.
Yeah, I mean, like basically all the other characters are at literally the end of their stories for the most part. I mean, there's a couple here and there that aren't, but Michelle Yeoh, Chow Yun-fat, and even Jade Fox, their stories have already 90% of their stories happened pretty much before this movie. We're just seeing the final dominoes drop in this one, whereas almost the entire mostly because we see the flashback specifically of Jen, we get her whole story within this. There's nothing left outside of it really.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's essentially not from her point of view for at least half the movie. But
I would say pretty much until the flashback. That's kind of why it feels like almost two movies. The first half almost feels like it's from Li Bai's perspective, whereas then it shifts very quickly, and the remaining, I would say the remaining 2/3 is from Jen's perspective.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, that goes, even the title indicates that, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I was looking up the meaning of this. I always thought Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon meant Jade Fox and Jen. Jen was the hidden dragon, this little girl who's actually a fierce warrior, and the Crouching Tiger was Jade Fox. They're hiding in polite society, but really they're these fearsome warriors. But apparently no. Apparently it has a symbolic Chinese meaning, something like the forces of great violence and emotional turmoil that lurk just beneath the everyday social interaction that occurs, especially in polite society. And that's obviously Jen. She's this polite little aristocrat, but beneath all of this facade is this great warrior waiting to come out. And in the first act, it's all hidden. It's all mind games and 3D chess and all the rest of it. And then as the movie progresses, she comes into her own more completely as she emerges as the the hidden dragon or the crouching.
Oh,
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I've never. I just always assumed it was they just took cool sounding phrases and threw them together. I didn't realize that it was an actual quote. I never looked it up though, so it was like an
yeah.
actual like thing.
It's something that it's like a dramatic a dramatic principle in Chinese theater or something. The Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look that up further. But that does bring us to final thoughts. Anything that we didn't get to, anything that we may have missed. I will start today with World War Joe, who I would just like to first thank for helping me out with this. This was one of the hardest streams I've ever put together. We had guests drop out, co-hosts drop out, the fucking trailer didn't goddamn work at all. But this was it was really fun putting this together with him. I'm really happy. So I will yield the floor to you for the first of the last thoughts.
Oh, first of all, happy to help out. Love being on here. It's a really great movie. I really don't think we really see a lot of things like this in today's cinema, especially something that would definitely go to the 18-year-old demographic. I think, like Despot was saying, they would probably lose interest probably about halfway through, and the amount of long shots in this would probably definitely ruin it. But it's a really solid movie. Certainly a movie I haven't seen in probably 20 years since it came out, but it's definitely going to be something I'm going to rewatch a lot more. And it's certainly a movie where you have to watch it a few times because there's a lot of deep things to it. It doesn't linger. Like I started off by saying that it could have been 3 hours easily if you want to jump into the backstories of everyone, but it was very well paced. It didn't waste any time, and I think it was a damn good movie.
That sums it up. Let's go counterclockwise. Adam.
Hello.
What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think Joe actually did a great job there. If you're someone who is maybe a little bit younger and you are frustrated with what is coming out new and all the sludge that's being pumped out the past few years, I would encourage everyone go back and look at the classics, because they're classics for a reason. And we were trying to discern the difference between a good movie and a great film. The great films are still right there waiting for you to watch them for the first time. You never know what you're going to find. This movie is easily an 8/10, easily for me.
Mm-hmm.
A great time rewatching it. And if you like this movie, I would encourage everyone to watch Hero in 2002 and House of Flying Daggers 2004, sort of an unofficial trilogy. They're all very good. Crouching Tiger is definitely the best in my opinion, but there's a lot of great stuff out there. You don't have to just sit there and stream sludge. So, and thanks for having me. It was a great discussion.
Oh, thank you. You're always a good guy to have on, because you first of all, this is like the third time you've bailed me out of having guests drop out. So I guess I definitely owe you one more B-sides for sure.
I'll be happy to have you back.
I mean, last time I don't even think I talked about the movie once. I was drunk by the time the damn thing started.
Yeah. Normally we either make fun of it or discuss it, but we just had a good time gabbing. That was fine.
I definitely got to come back just to play the game, because now I understand how that game works and I understand how you guys vote. So, but I'll definitely come back. But thank you for coming on. Jacob. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
I grew up watching...
hold on, Jacob. Adam, just finish your last thought there.
Oh no, I was just saying I'm done.
Oh, okay. So now back to Jacob, who was like I said, he was in, he was out, he was in again. He was the he couldn't make up his mind on whether he could make this one, but I'm glad he showed up. So.
Yeah, glad I could. Yeah, I grew up watching classic movies, old movies, black and whites, which have that slow pacing that you don't get much anymore. And if you can get it out of your head that this is not a, Michael Bay fast paced movie, if you can set that aside and just sit back and take it in, you will enjoy this movie.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, you have to approach certain movies differently. Obviously, you're not going to watch Fast and the Furious 47 the same way you're going to watch, Passion of the Christ. Like they're very different movies. You have to approach them differently. Um, but this one, you definitely, first of all, if you have a familiarity with Chinese cinema and Hong Kong cinema, you're going to have a better approach for this one. There's a very specific way that they do things there with their movies, especially the Wuxia ones. Obviously, they're like cop dramas and stuff are a little bit more similar to American cinema. I didn't even drink for this one, but yeah, I agree with that fully. Despot. This was, like I said, I pretty much added this one for you. I'm really glad because you made me want to go back and rewatch it again because you always bring in really good points or things that I didn't notice, and now I got to go back and watch it again. So, but did you have anything that we missed? I know there was some brief moments where you had to step away if maybe we missed something there. Or
I'm sure there was, but there's no matter how much you criticize this movie, obviously in positive terms, there's always going to be things you leave behind. It's brilliant in all aspects of cinema. The acting, cinematography, the choreography, the fight choreography is unsurpassed. This and The Matrix are my two favorite movies in terms of fight choreography, not just because of the choreography itself, but because of the meaning, the characterization, the narrative, and the themes that surround it. They're not just vapid actions on screen. They have real deep meaning. It's a magnum opus. I won't say Ang Lee's a great director because, as we discussed, he simply did too much shit to be considered a great director. But he is a very good director, and this is his best work. This is a magnum opus. It's a masterpiece, and it's a shame that it's not more widely recognized today because I was surprised how little there was on YouTube in terms of criticism of this movie because it deserves to be remembered as one of the great movies of its day because it absolutely is.
I think that just means that it's been waiting for you to do it. As for me, this was one, and ever since I started this YouTube venture, like a lot of people know that I never really intended on going this route, but became a thing that I loved, and it's given me the ability to do things like this, go back and reevaluate older movies that maybe I didn't appreciate at the time, especially through this new lens of now I'm looking at it as a critic. And I think this may have been the most exemplary of that for me. It was, I remember seeing it when I was like 14, 15 and I said it earlier, not being particularly impressed because I wasn't ready to be impressed by this movie. And now that I get to go back and watch it, is it a little slow in the beginning? Yeah, it ramps up. Yeah, there's a couple of the criticisms are very minor. Like I said, there's the one scene that's kind of cliche of them like, oh, we've arrived. Oh no, he's dead. But like, there's such minor little tiny gripes. It knocks it down to half a point at best. And it's definitely one that I'm going to now add to my every couple years rewatch. Because there's certain movies that you just have to do that from time to time, and I think that's what this is going to become. It's going to be in that group of 10 to 20 movies that I just feel I have to go back and rewatch from time to time. So, but yeah, and that brings us to, and unfortunately, Uninspired's not here to do it, but I will try to do it as best I can. It is now time to plug your shit, my man. That's where you tell us where you are, where you'll be, what you're doing, where to find you. And we will start with he's way more practiced with that than I am.
Can I just start, guys? Because I gotta run. So can I?
Yeah, I was going to start with you, Despot, actually, and then you can go.
So do you know Concord, that failed video game?
Yes.
So Concord actually Sony teamed up with Amazon to release an episode of Concord, like of their Concord universe, because they planned for it to be this massive IP. And so they got one TV episode made, and it's just one of the most abominable fucking things I've ever seen. So I've got a video about that coming out in a couple of days.
Oh, I'll check that out, because that was I didn't follow that much, but when it did finally hit and all the problems happened, I found them hilarious. So this might be a nice way to do that.
It is shocking, man. Anyway, I really got to run, guys, but it's been
great. Go ahead.
Yeah,
thank you for being on.
Thanks very much for having me on, and I look forward to American Psycho. I think it's the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a couple months from now. I'll keep you in the loop.
It's gonna be good. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Later.
Okay, now we're all Americans here. So,
Oh, thank God.
So let's go with Jacob. What do you got coming up, my man?
Yeah. My channel on Tuesday night, I'll be going over the movie Highway in the Sky, I think. It's old 1950. Here, I'm pulling it up real quick. My schedule up real quick. Yeah, Island in the Sky. It's a 1953 John Wayne movie. We'll be going over that one.
It's weird because I know like John Wayne movies. I only really know like the big ones, you know, the Hondos and the like those ones. But it's like that was during a time when everybody, like all actors, did like 15 movies a year. It was like insane what they used to do back then.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so
one
anybody
actually kind of a this one's actually kind of a survival movie with John Wayne.
Yeah, so if anybody is a John Wayne fan, be sure to check that out with Jacob on Tuesdays, right? Tuesday, what time?
7 p.m. Central.
Oh, perfect. And now that takes us over to Adam, who everybody knows where you can find him, but I got to find out what they're doing next.
Well, I'm not going to spoil the surprise for next week, but mostly because I don't pick them until the last second. You can find me every Friday and my co-pilot Barbara on B-roll stage doing the B-side show, where we do live riffs and commentary on generally older movies that we can show the full film of. But tomorrow, I think we're both going to be joining Sammy Threepeat for his weekly news roundup.
Oh, nice. He was originally supposed to be on this stream, but he had something came up, so I'm going to get him on again in the near future.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so it's called In Other News, and it's on Sammy Threepeat's channel, and the Eclectic Goat is there every week, and it's a good time. But yeah, other than that, B-sides every Friday. We are at about 950 subs, and Razorhead's
get those numbers up, guys.
Yeah, he's got those links in the chat. So the push to 1,000 is on, folks.
Push to 1,000, so that way Adam can yell at YouTube through Twitter again.
Another mile marker of not getting monetized. That's right.
Yes, I've been waiting for this mile marker.
Yes.
But yeah, let's get them to 1,000, guys. I know that this one's not a crazy amount of people watching it right now, but I know there will be more people watching after this is done. If you haven't subscribed to them, please do.
Thank you.
And that leaves me with my co-pilot for the day. I'm going to steal that. I like that, Adam. It's my co-pilot for the day, World War Joe, who filled in admirably for Uninspired Reviewer. Where can we find you? How can we find you? What will you be on next?
I don't think I'm actually doing any live streams anytime soon though. Just had a child, so that's really really a new experience.
That's the most impressive thing. He put together the slideshow while rocking a baby. It was insane. He was,
breastfeeding is a little bit difficult, but I'll get the hang of it.
Yeah.
But right
it's like
now,
that scene in what was that? Meet the Fockers. You have the fake boob or whatever.
My wife actually wouldn't let me buy that. Unbelievable. But right now,
I will not have any fake titties in my house.
But thankfully, in preparation of that, I'm just backed up on music. I have a few other videos coming out. I know the Doctor Who, the death of that just happened, so I'm trying to get that out as soon as I possibly can. But right now, I'm backed up for music until the 24th. At this point, a lot of biblical stuff, a lot of movie music going on. So, yeah, just kind of taking a new approach to these things, and just trying to see where the road takes me. I'm 17 away from monetization, so that's pretty good.
Let's get that up too, everybody. Let's start pumping these numbers. I gotta get I really should get the clip of Matthew McConaughey. We got to pump those numbers up.
Yes,
I'm gonna move. But thank you once again for filling in. You really did a great job, and I know I have you again on in the near future.
I think March. Right?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are going to be making because we're doing a show every week in March, so there's going to be a lot of people that are showing up for two within a short period of time. It's our premium month, martial arts, which unofficially always starts in February. We've done it both years in a row. So, but yeah, that's I guess that's me. next. Like I just said, we have a show coming up every week. Tar should be back next week, I hope, because it's going to get crazy for the next few weeks. On Tuesday, I will be on with Critical Drinker. We're going to be talking about Cobra Kai. I've been really looking forward to this one. And I'm not sure yet because I know Daredevil's coming out pretty soon. I may be covering that. Depends if it's a good show. I'm not going to be doing videos because no one will watch it. Then they're just going to want to watch the show. So it's like there's no
looks
point.
Pretty good.
The thing I'm worried about with that is that they put the kibosh on this when it was almost completely done and restarted a bunch of shit. So I'm just wondering for them to and got it out within like a year of redoing everything. So I'm wondering how much of that could have how affected that could have been by that. That being said, even if I don't do a video for that, obviously I'll be covering Snow White because everyone will be, and if you don't, you're just not cool. And but yeah, you can always find me here, and I'll probably be on a few other streams in the near future. I don't have anything on the docket as of right now, but soon. But yeah, if anybody else have anything else they want to say before we call it a night?
I'm good.
No.
If you haven't seen this movie, you best watch it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But that being said, thank you everybody, and have a good night.